You don't exist. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowing like sis. They done perfected the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look up better put on the road I just spent. I've been working $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper than
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. Here we present you different world stories and adaptations. This is the 6th part of What If Saitama Enters Dragon Ball God's Arena. Smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Let the 4th round of the Frieza Mania begin. Both fighters disappeared from sight. In the arena, immensely strong bursts of air pressure formed. The spectators staggered as the air whipped their faces. It was as if that the two fighters were invisible, only reappearing for brief moments at a time to clash in short and consecutive attacks. Up in the sky, one of the Ginyus was having just a little bit of trouble keeping up with the action. And who else but Guldo? "Hey guys, can you keep up with the action down there?" said Guldo. Yeah, replied Jeice. "Wait, can you actually not see what's going on?" Guldo began to stammer, not being able to come up with an appropriate response. "UNNNOO." The red Australian alien let out a hearty laugh. "Crikey mate, it's a bloomin' miracle you managed to win against the chick. Of the two of us, which one of us can literally stop time whenever he wants? Of the two of us, which of us can handle a gut full of piss? What US? Stop." Captain Ginyu made his way in between his two subordinates before things escalated even further. "Boys, enough of this nonsensical and derogatory behavior. You're both members of the most illustrious group of fighters by the universe. There's no need to get in such a heated debacle. We're all literally on the same team here. And besides, one of your teammates is fighting right now, and I think he'd appreciate it if you actually paid attention." Guldo, did Burter bicker on and on while you were fighting? Or did he cheer you on like a true member of the Ginyu force would support their own? "He cheered me on," replied Guldo with a tone that sounded like a naughty kid caught red-handed by his parents. "Then be quiet and show some respect for your teammate." The two soldiers straightened their arms to their sides. "Yes sir. Now apologize to each other and shake hands." Guldo and Jeice shook each other's hands and gave each other solemn and understanding looks of apology. "Sorry about that, Jeice." "Me too, Guldo." "Good. That's the good sportsmanship I like to see. Now pay attention to the battle." With that heated debacle out of the way, they obeyed their captain and focused their attention back on the battlefield. Flashy Flash struck Burter with a hard right knee to his gut. Bayer caught his knee with both of his hands and returned the attack with a left roundhouse kick. Flashy Flash ducked his head and wiggled his way out of Burter's grasp. The two then continued to exchange a quick barrage of kicks and punches, with neither one of them giving each other an inch. After about 100 of these swift blows, the two managed to get a final right hook onto each of their cheeks. The dual force was enough to send them back a few feet. "Damn, you're actually not bad," shouted Burter. "Likewise, it's been quite some time since I've fought an opponent of such caliber," replied Flashy Flash. The hero landed a firm right kick to Burter's chest. Using Burter's chest as a launching pad, Flashy Flash bounded backward, performing lightning-quick backflips in the process. Once he reached the arena, Flashy Flash moved so fast, an image of his form was left behind. Burter smirked. "What an amateur move." Burter immediately ducked, dodging the left side kick that would have hit him square in the back. Flashy Flash was taken aback by Burter's anticipation of his attack. Right here, Flashy Flash turned and saw Burter strike him with a right elbow. Flashy Flash attempted to meet his attack with his own elbow, but he didn't have enough reaction time to properly counter, and Burter's attack overpowered his own counter in an instant. Flashy Flash was thrown to the ground, but managed to put his hands out and got himself back on his feet with a small backflip. The hero rubbed his elbow. "So you were able to see through my afterimage technique." Burter snorted. "I know that technique all too well to be fooled by such a half-assed use of it. If that's the best you've got, you haven't got a chance in hell." The hero met his condescending attitude with a simple smirk. "Oh, don't worry. There's still far more to come." "Good to hear. Now that I know my regular speed isn't enough to attain an easy victory, why don't I show you a little bit of my true speed?" Flashy Flash unsheathed his katana, the sunlight brightly reflecting off of the shiny surface of his blade. Flowing shadow feet, Flashy Flash vanished from sight once again. Only this time, instead of a single afterimage, multiple copies of Flashy Flash spread around Burter in a single blurry line. From the sidelines, the heroes marveled at Flashy Flash's incredible speed and ability to produce multiple afterimages of himself. Garu, in particular, was having a hard time comprehending the hero's speed. His eyes had absolutely no grasp of where either Flashy Flash or his opponent were moving. Their speed was phenomenal, and this was only while they were still warming up. If this was the power of the upper echelon of S-Class, then Garu still had a lot of progress to make. Against Flashy Flash, there was no doubt in his mind that he would lose in an instant. Garu listened into the other S-Class heroes to see if they were having just as difficult a time as he was in looking at the battle or not. Flashy Flash certainly lives up to his name, said Bomb. I'm surprised he's at such a low ranking in S-Class with speed like this. Agreed. Bang looked to Atomic Samurai and Super Alloy Darkshine. What about you two? Can your eyes keep up with Flashy Flash's speed? Come on, Silver Fang. Do you really have that little faith in my abilities? Said Atomic Samurai. You sparred with me once, Bang. You should know that these muscles give me all the speed I need. My apologies. Garu's muscles tensed in frustration under his shirt. He now looked to Metal Bat to see exactly how he was handling this, and given King was the strongest man on this planet, there was no possible way he wasn't able to follow this. Likewise, the other heroes followed suit and observed Metal Bat. Metal Bat's face was scrunched, his eyes were loose and unfocused, and his lips were pursed in a slight frown. Yo Metal Bat, you fall in this alright, said Super Alloy Darkshine. Metal Bat turned to his fellow S-Class heroes and angrily replied, "Da hoy. Isn't that obvious? Just focus on the battle and stop worrying about who can see what." Cool, cool. Burter held his hands up in a defensive stance, his eyes frivolously attempting to figure out which of his afterimages was actually Flashy Flash. This was definitely a more effective use of the afterimage technique. I'll go for the furthest left. Burter plunged a fist at the furthest left afterimage, but his fist went through straight clean. Damn it. Flashy Flash jumped up into the sky, then began a succession of multiple front flips. The move he was about to use had been one of the first moves he and Kazuki learned together as part of the 44th final graduation class of their clan. He didn't like using it because it brought up bad memories, but he couldn't deny it was useful. The hero shot himself down and struck Burter with his left leg, but the alien caught it in his hand. Flashy Flash slashed Burter's wrist, causing him to let go of his leg. Flashy Flash continued the assault and went straight behind his opponent. Burter shouted in pain when he felt the cold katana slice through his back. But Burter wouldn't let the damage be one-sided. Sucking up the pain, Burter made a 180-degree turn, placed his free hand out and fired a blue energy wave. The energy wave landed a direct hit on Flashy Flash, the force of the attack sending him flying back a few dozen feet. Both fighters moaned in pain. Burter's armor managed to absorb most of the brunt of the blow, but it still wasn't strong enough to protect him completely. From his lower left of his torso to the top right of his right shoulder, a huge cut from Flashy Flash's katana pierced his body. On the flip side, Flashy Flash's upper chest armor was shattered. The bottom half of his cape was burned off by the heat from Burter's energy wave, and he felt his chest compressing around his insides. He had been reckless in his attack, arrogant that his opponent wouldn't have had enough time to properly react and counter one more short-range blast like that, and it was bye-bye Flashy Flash. Alright, no more Mr. Nice Guy. Now that you've seriously pissed me off, I'm not holding back anymore. It's time to show you exactly how fast the fastest guy in the universe can go. Okay, hold it, hold it. Flashy Flash dropped his katana and scrunched his shoulders. Exactly where do you get that from that you're the fastest in the universe? And why the hell do you have to keep boasting every 5 minutes? Flashy Flash's candor statement was something Burter didn't expect this far into the battle. It's just because I'm fast. What the hell's your deal? It's getting on my nerves. Alright, let's try to argue this problem logically. That purple guy with the big horns sticking out of his head. Flashy Flash pointed to Captain Ginyu. He's your captain, right? Yeah. And is he more powerful than you? And according to the laws of common sense, a higher power level means you're faster, right? Well, maybe. And that small lizard guy sitting on the hover chair is your boss. And that probably means he's more powerful than all of you, right? Okay, well that's just not fair. Yell Burter. Up from the spectating crowd floating in the air, Goldo chimed into the conversation, stating, if you think about it, I can technically freeze time, so that makes me faster than any. Before Goldo could finish his idea of reasoning, Burter rudely and angrily cut him off, screaming at him, okay no. I am not slower than you, Goldo. I'm sorry, but that's where I draw the fucking line. Geez, Burter, calm down, clamored Jeice. No, shut up. Just shut your mouths. Well, the little guy has a point there, and I think you know it, said Flashy Flash. Burter turned back to Flashy Flash, his teeth bared with venomous rage. Shut your face. You shut your stupid girlish face. This insult angered Flashy Flash, causing the ends of his mouth to drop down. What? You heard me. I only realized like 2 minutes ago that you weren't even a girl. You don't know what it's like. Everybody on my team has something special. I don't. What am I? The big blue snake guy. That's all I got. That's all I got. But as expected of a cold-hearted and arrogant enemy, Flashy Flash let out a condescending wolf whistle and shook his head in the same form of manner, only serving to infuriate Burter even more. If you ran as fast as your mouth, I'd consider you the fastest fighter in the universe. In my eyes, you're just a sad excuse for a fighter. That did it. You condescending, assholic, self-righteous piece of shit. Now you've done it. Burter's energy began glowing around his body, until in seconds, his entire body was enraptured with a bright purple aura. You've made me very, very, very mad. Flashy Flash put his hands up in a defensive stance in preparation for the next attack. Burter's form speedily faded from Flashy Flash's frontal line of sight. Something wasn't right. Even Flashy Flash's speed wasn't fast enough to properly defend himself against Burter's fists that came barreling into his face. Flashy Flash tried to strike back, but Burter was moving at such a fast velocity, he was gone before he even had the chance to counter. Flashy Flash sensed something odd with this. He could tell Burter was fighting close to his maximum speed. So where did this extra boost in speed come from? He didn't even have the time to come up with an explanation, as Burter returned and shot himself back at Flashy Flash, striking him in the back just as Flashy Flash had done to him. Doesn't feel too good, does it? Yelled Burter. Damn it. Flashy Flash turned around to face Burter, who was standing in a typical confident pose of crossed arms and a smirk on his face. How were you able to gain so much speed? Oh, so now I'm fast. Well, if you must know, when I was a little boy, my mom was the most strict yet loving mother in existence. Every day, I had to finish all of the household chores and make dinner for the two of us, and if I was ever late in preparing dinner, my mom would slap me like you couldn't imagine. It's because of that I had to become the fastest I could be and increase my traveling speed like I never thought possible. Your hand-to-hand combat speed might be superior to mine, but in terms of raw travel speed, you're outmatched entirely. Now let's see you handle one of these. Burter sped towards Flashy Flash and attacked him with a right-handed chop toward his head. Flashy Flash managed to dodge, but like before, Burter's velocity didn't allow him to slow down, and he kept on hurtling across the arena until he firmly planted his feet into the ground to stop himself in his tracks. During this short clash, Flashy Flash assessed the situation he was in. Burter wasn't lying when he said his travel speed was superior to his own, which pissed him off to no end. It was more than the fact he was faster, but the fact that he was such a hog for the spotlight and so insecure about himself made it all the more annoying. Each of his attacks were singular, as he used his enhanced travel speed to make sure he wouldn't have enough time to counterattack. He had to find the right time to land a counterstrike that Burter wouldn't anticipate so he could land the final blow. Throughout the entire fight, he'd been observing Burter's fighting style, his preferred attacks, and the movements he made while fighting him in close combat. Soon enough, he'd find an opening that Burter wouldn't be able to defend himself from. The ninja flew toward Burter and attempted to swing at him with his katana, but Burter dodged before he had the chance to strike. Flashy Flash began several evasive maneuvers to ensure Burter couldn't land an accurate blow on Burter. Alas, Flashy Flash couldn't properly follow Burter's form, so this forced him to be on the defensive at all times in order to compensate. Behind you, Flashy Flash swung himself around, and Burter was floating above him, two bright blue balls of energy cupped into his hands. Azure Energy Barrage. In a furious blitz, Burter fired a stream of energy attacks at Flashy Flash. The blonde-haired ninja dodged each of the energy balls, although each of them exploded midair, creating shockwaves that combined were throwing Flashy Flash off balance. Burter flew toward Flashy Flash and nailed him square in the stomach with a right kick. Flashy Flash retaliated and swung his katana at Burter's neck, but just as the blade was about to reach its target, Burter fired another short-ranged energy wave. Flashy Flash retreated and jumped onto one of the 4 pillars planted in the stadium. Burter flew toward him with his right fist prepping to strike, and Flashy Flash met his fist with a left knee. The two fighters struck each other with another successive wave of punches. Burter shone a devious smile, which made Flashy Flash stiffen in preparation for what was to come next. The blue alien pointed his index finger and middle finger and attempted to jab Flashy Flash's eyes and blind him for the rest of the fight. Alas, Flashy Flash grabbed his wrist just as his fingernails were an inch away from piercing his eyes. Crotch shot. With his free hand, Burter threw his fist down at Flashy Flash's junk. But Flashy Flash had prepared himself for a dirty move like that, and met his fist with his right knee once again. Aw nuts. Burter spun both himself and Flashy Flash midair, and once he gained enough momentum, he forcefully pushed Flashy Flash off of him and straight into the ground. Flashy Flash spun several times while he catapulted to the ground, landing softly on the stone tiles. You know what? I think the fastest guy in the Ginyu force has had enough with this fight. Just for you, I'm gonna finish you off with my blue hurricane attack. It's my ultimate technique, and together with Jeice's red magma, it forms the most amazing combo attack ever conceived. The seizure procedure. You got that right, Burter, shouted Jeice from the sidelines. Now get ready, Flashy Flash. Here comes the pain. Around his body, a pure blue aura enveloped him, and as he powered up, he struck a signature Ginyu Force pose as a means of intimidation and showmanship. Blue Hurricane. Burter rushed himself toward Flashy Flash. But what Burter didn't realize was that Flashy Flash had been waiting for this moment precisely. The moment when Burter would be too caught up in his own hubris and inflated ego and simply rush at him with everything he had. Flashy Flash readied himself, his katana held in his right hand, eager to strike its victim. In a centisecond, Burter closed the distance between the two of them and lashed out. Flashy Slash. Steel and flesh clashed against each other. The spectators marveled at the intensity, the energy from both of these powerful warriors' strikes. Blue energy and yellow lightning wrapped themselves around the two insanely fast fighters, and both of them were screaming as loud as they possibly could. GGGHHHI. In a stunning flash of bright light and excessive energy, the stadium was lit with a blinding explosion. Sonic was ecstatic. His feet were nervously tapping on the ground, his fingers mildly shaking his legs as he sat cross-legged on the ground. He still couldn't believe that Nappa had agreed to teach him how to use the supernatural abilities Nappa had utilized in their fight. With these secrets revealed to him, Saitama wouldn't stand a chance against him. What's taking so long? Just relax, will you? Nappa was sitting on the ground, his back facing towards Sonic. At the moment, Nappa was attempting to psyche himself up for this crash course he was going to give Sonic. He was still contemplating whether or not this was worth the time and effort. Never in a million years would he have thought he would be teaching the speedy prick. He turned his head around, and was taken aback when he saw how excited he was for this. He'd never seen anyone this excited about anything. Oh God, I'm already regretting this, he sighed, then turned himself around to face Sonic. Alright, if I'm gonna do this, we're gonna lay down some ground rules. Sonic shifted uncomfortably. This didn't sound good at all. Okay, rule number 1. The authority and confidence in Nappa's voice was extremely dominant, and he felt like he was in fact sitting face to face with an army drill sergeant. You will address me as sir. Alright what? Sonic groaned, and said through gritted teeth, alright, sir. That's better. Rule number 2, my word is law. You will obey all of my instructions without any objections whatsoever, you got that, maggot? Understood, sir. Now, repeat after me. Nappa's stern face softened, and the authoritative tone was diluted with disdainful and arrogant banter. I have zero talent. The vein on Sonic's forehead bulged, and his fists were clenched as he shouted back at Nappa. What? No way am I saying that. Instead of arguing back, Nappa instead shrugged his shoulders and gave Sonic an indifferent look. Cool. Nappa pushed himself off of the ground and proceeded to walk toward his bunk bed, saying, means less work for me. Good luck fighting the bald bastard. I'll write on your epitaph. He died like he lived, a pig. No. The ninja silently admitted defeat, slouching his whole body and closing his eyes while saying, I have zero talent. Hectic laughter filled the room. The Saiyan general clasped his chest as he howled with delight. He took back what he said. He wouldn't trade this for the world. Wait, hold on. Nappa took deep breaths to calm himself down, although it took about a minute for him to finally calm himself down. You haven't finished. General Nappa has all of the talent. General Nappa has all of the talent. If I'm lucky, some of General Nappa's amazing talents will brush off on me. If I am lucky, some of General Nappa's amazing talents will brush off on me. Aha, that's amazing. Alright. It's very funny. Now can we get on with it? Fine. I got my fill of laughs for the day. Nappa walked back to the spot he was originally sitting at, and seated himself with his legs crossed and his hands on his laps, the stoic demeanor quickly returning as the atmosphere around the two began to fill itself with anticipation and hidden dread at the same time. Are you ready? Asked Nappa. The ninja scoffed at Nappa, replying with, I'm always ready. Good, then let's begin. Inside of every living being, At the center of their bodies, Nappa pointed to the center of his chest as a reference point. There is an intangible force known as Kai. By drawing it out, you change this into a tangible force that you can manipulate and use outside of the body. Observe. Nappa held his palm out, and from his hand, a small bright ball of energy formed from his hand. Sonic slowly approached the ball of energy with a silent yet enthusiastic expression on his face. He never got to see the energy firsthand, as he went unconscious just before Nappa fired his ultimate energy cannon. Now that he could see just a tiny sample of this phenomenal energy, he marveled at its bright glow, the heat emanating from it, like a night light giving warmth to all those around it. Very interesting. Nappa cupped his palm, motioning for Sonic to move back to his upright position. It is this internal Kai that fuels all energy attacks. Even the ability of flight is just the user being propelled upward by their energy. Depending on how much energy you've built up inside you and how effective you are at honing it, the speed at which you fly, and the power of your energy blasts will greatly improve. So how do I access it? You have to imagine Kai as an extension of yourself. Just as you actively command your body to walk, to breathe, to fight, you also have to command the energy in yourself and channel it to wherever you want, whether it be your hands, your feet, your mouth, even your eyes. But given your weakened state, it would be harder for you to channel your energy. Can I give it a shot, sir? Sure. Sonic cupped his hands and did as Nappa said. In his mind, he commanded the energy to come into his palms, to come surging forth out of his body into his palms. However, no matter how hard he tried, no matter how much he forcibly demanded the energy come out of him, nothing came out of him. It isn't working. Just calm down. Like I said, it won't be as easy when you're in this weakened state. But clouding your mind with anger and frustration is just gonna make it more difficult. Imagine the energy in yourself like a river that flows throughout you, giving you the strength and speed your body needs. Right now, in order to release it, you have to empty your mind of everything. The only thing that should be on your mind is feeling that river. Can you do that? The black-haired ninja nodded to him. I think I can. Sonic once again closed his eyes, except this time, he left all of his anger and frustrations behind him. Erase all thoughts, like a river flowing through me. These were the only thoughts running through his mind. He continued to persist and keep his mind devoid of any other thoughts, until finally, a bright blue light shined between his hands. Sonic opened his eyes, and he gasped. He had done it. He managed to unlock his inner Kai. I quote am doing it. Good. Nappa gave Sonic a sly smirk and nodded his head in approval. Once your body's fully operational again, this should be a breeze to master, and you'll be able to form energy attacks with the capacity of destroying entire cities. Are you serious? That's amazing. There's no time to waste then. Let's take to the skies. Nappa's grin faded and he said, whoa. You're way too early into training to think about learning to fly. You think that if you get on a bike, you'll be able to ride it in a day. It takes muscle memory, time for your body and mind to properly adjust and integrate your internal Kai into your daily movements. Besides, in your state, you'd be faster on the ground than in the air. Groans of annoyance filled Nappa's ears, causing him to shout, "Stop your complaining, you prick. Look, if you want to fly, you're gonna have to get this down first. Now, before we go any further, I want you to form a ball of energy as big as a grapefruit. Then, when you finally get that done, work on having the time it took for you to form that energy, then work on having that time. Then make the energy ball twice as large. Do that, and then we'll talk about flying." Son of a, what was that? Nothing. Nothing what? Nothing, sir. That's better. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna eat the apple you were gonna save for later. Sonic's face twisted in rage. Like hell you will. In response, Nappa wagged his finger in his typical arrogant tone. Don't you remember rule number 2? But nothing. Just focus on your own thing and let me enjoy your apple. Sonic groaned and grumbled to himself, grudgingly focusing his attention back on the adder at hand. All the while, Nappa was feasting himself on Sonic's apple, beaming in delight. This was officially the best prison sentence he ever served in his life. City Z was nothing short of a ghost town, devoid of any human life, emphasis on human. No, in this city, monsters were roaming free, wandering the empty streets, looting whatever shops that caught their eyes or foods that looked tasty. Any people that were dumb enough to stay behind were either beaten, tortured, or devoured by any monster they were unfortunate enough to cross paths with. In a dark alleyway, a pack of monsters were reading a newspaper the humans had published for today's paper. As they read through the different subjects, their eyes caught the headline about the Monster Association and the operations throughout all 26 of the human cities. An entire association of monsters. Sounds neat. But it doesn't say the location of the headquarters, said one of the monsters. True, said another monster. But if I had to guess, the monster averted his gaze from the paper and up to the sky. There are a lot of strong presences that way. It's a sensation only fellow monsters can send out and feel. You know, there are rumors that the headquarters was actually in this ghost town, how they wanted to bring about a revolution. But I never actually believed it. I get it now, said one of the monsters. These attacks, they weren't just meant as a warning to humans. They were meant as an invitation. For US, really? That sounds awesome. I want to join the Monster Association. The horde of monsters began marching in a large group, each of them cackling in sadistic pleasure as the idea of the downfall of humanity ran through all of their minds. We're gonna massacre all of the heroes. Not today. Before any of the monsters even had time to register the fact they were in danger, they were all obliterated in a single punch, their guts being vaporized by the overwhelming heat from the kinetic energy built up by the hero, Saitama. All in all, about 100 monsters were left as lifeless corpses, tainting the street with their blood and intestines. Saitama thanked God that he wasn't wearing his hero suit, or else his clothes would have been stained with a bunch of random blood splotches and chunks of different internal intestines. This entire predicament was like a double-edged sword for him and all the other people who had been saved by Saitama. Aha, I finally made it. His apartment complex came into sight. He didn't even bother slowing down as he arrived at the entrance of the apartment building. Not giving a shit about the collateral damage, he bust through the front doors. As he raced up the stairs, each stair step ruptured and broke in half from the immense pressure of Saitama's feet. In less than a second, Saitama made it to his apartment, breaking through his wooden door just as he did the doors before. The Hero Association can pay for the bills. Now where did I put my suit? Saitama put his temples to his head. If this took longer than a minute, Saitama would be seriously pissed. He practically tore apart his drawers trying to find his hero suit. Nothing turned up. Next, he ran into his bathroom to see if he left in the bathroom, since that was one of the most likely places he'd leave it. No such luck. Damn it. Saitama exited his bathroom and scurried across his main living room. But out of the corner of his eye, he spotted something white and yellow laying on the balcony along with a few other pieces of clothes. Yes, he forgot that Genos had left his laundry to dry, since his dryer was broken and he didn't want to waste the money to replace it. He thoroughly examined the suit to see if there were any spots that Genos had missed, and thankfully, there was nothing noticeable. Got to hurry. In Saitama's mind, everybody had already evacuated the city since there were literally hundreds of monsters in the city, so that's why he didn't even bother entering the balcony to change, but instead went buck-ass nude right out in the open. At this point, he couldn't give two shits and a popsicle about anything except Frieza. Once he was finally changed into his hero suit, he beamed with delight. All I need to do is make up the time I lost getting here. Saitama jumped off of the balcony and onto the streets so that he wouldn't damage his apartment. Killer move, serious jump. Saitama bent his legs and propelled himself up into the sky, cracking the street and causing it to sink into the earth. Saitama's heart was ablaze and his eyes were flaming with passion. Let's go make some history. The spectating fighters covered their eyes just as they had in the previous battles as the wind swept through the land yet again in the wake of yet another earth-shattering clash. The entire arena was as bright as a supernova, preventing anyone from seeing exactly what was going on. It took about 10 seconds for the intense and lustrous energy dome to secede, and it took another 10 seconds for all of the spectators to feel it was safe enough to open their eyes. That was insane, said Super Alloy Darkshine. Who do you think won? Asked King. The light and smoke are clearing. Take a look for yourselves. Every single spectator waited in earnest for the revelation of who was the victor of this fourth round of the Frieza Mania. I think I see him, said Jeice. He squinted his eyes, and behind the layer of dust, he could clearly see a form laying unconscious on the ground. Burter's won, shouted Jeice with fanatic delight. He knew his best mate would kick that ninja's arse. I wouldn't be so sure, added Captain Ginyu. Captain Ginyu pointed down to show Jeice what he was talking about. Jeice squinted even harder, and let out a gasp of shock. The one laying unconscious on the ground was Burter. Me best mate lost, said Jeice in a tone of repudiation. But Jeice, Captain Ginyu, what about? Guldo spoke in a hesitant tone and pointed to what he was seeing. The smoke cleared, and what it revealed was stupefying. Lying unconscious on the ground just a few feet away was Flashy Flash. Both of them were knocked out. Across Burter's right arm, a deep cut seared through his limb. His armor was broken, his shoulder pads shattered into several different pieces, and his black wristbands laid with dozens of scratches and marks. On the flip side, Flashy Flash held in his right hand nothing but a sword handle. A foot away from his right hand, the blade of his katana was fractured beyond repair, broken into several little pieces just like Burter's shoulder pads. His hair was a mess, and his cape had been almost completely vaporized by the heat of the clash, leaving just a small rag hanging at the base of his neck. "So, it's a tie?" asked Metal Bat. "I guess it is," replied Bang. Burter. Jeice flew down as fast as he could to his unconscious friend, forcing back a sob as he took in all of the bruises and scars on his body. He put his fingers to his neck to confirm whether the worst had happened. He sighed a breath of relief. Burter was still alive, just knocked unconscious. "Me mate, I'm sorry this had happened to ya. I promise I'll avenge you in the next round if it's the last thing I bloody do." He stared at Flashy Flash's unconscious body and growled in anger. Grabbing Flashy Flash by the hair, Jeice threw him to the spectating heroes who were each a little uncomfortable with the emotions Jeice was displaying. "Captain, can you get Burter to the healing pod?" shouted Jeice. "Of course," replied Captain Ginyu. The captain floated down and picked up Burter's lifeless body, being careful not to touch any of his scars. "All right, you bastards. Who wants some of this Australian arse? Huh, I do." Metal Bat speedily jumped up onto the arena, a grin on his face and his eyes burning with passionate intensity. "It's about time I finally got to bash some skulls in." The 17-year-old S-class hero jumped up onto the arena, his face supremely confident. Metal Bat's rambunctious and excited demeanor in preparation for this monumental threat that was coming Earth's way was palpable all throughout his time spectating, and he reveled in delight knowing that he finally had the opportunity to release some of this lively energy pent up within him. I mean, he was still in high school, his life as a boring student and a professional hero was a fine line. And stuff like this allowed him to boost his cred as an S-class hero and pump him up in the process. "Man, you really seemed like you were tearing up looking at your friend just now. I'm touched." "Shut your face, you wanker." Jeice shot Metal Bat a look of pure contempt. He'd been waiting to put this punk-ass kid in his place, and every derogatory insult he spewed only served to increase the boiling storm of anger building up inside of him. Well, after waiting 4 consecutive rounds in anxious preparation for his turn in the ring, his time had finally come, and Jeice sure as hell wasn't gonna waste a single second of it. "God, what's up with your accent?" said Metal Bat. "I'm from Space Australia, you daft bastard." 3 dots went across Metal Bat's face in an anime-style comedic fashion. "Space Australia. So it's Australia." "Yes, in bloody space." "Wow, that's really something." "Look who's talking," shouted Frieza from up in his hover chair. "By the way, the 50s called. They want their hairstyle back." "You think you're real cute, making those witty insults from up high in your hover chair while you're eating bread and wine like a snooty asshat. But when I'm done with this guy, you're next," shouted Metal Bat. "More like if, not when," whispered Frieza to nobody in particular. "So, I gotta ask," said Jeice, "what's the deal with that bat of yours?" "This?" Metal Bat propped the bat up onto his shoulder. "I was a legendary baseball player when I was a kid, famous for getting home runs after every second strike and coming back stronger than ever. Well, I gotta say, that's quite the coincidence. When I was a tiny little bugga, I was the startin' pitcher for the Galactic Little League. Crikey, it was there I made me special crush a ball, ma ultimate pitch. It was so fast, the buggin' batter couldn't even realize the ball had even left ma hand until they heard the ball hitting the catcher's glove." Metal Bat let out a loud hum of curiosity. "Sounds interesting." Jeice smirked delightfully at Metal Bat. "Oh, it is. All right, I've waited long enough." Frieza raised his hand up into the air and shouted, "Let the 5th round of the Frieza Mania begin." Frieza sliced his hand down, signifying the beginning of this very interesting battle. "With Plessa, my lord. Let's get it on. You got him, freak." Metal Bat pounced toward Jeice and swung his bat toward Jeice's head. Jeice ducked and punched Metal Bat square in the stomach. Metal Bat grunted in pain, but nonetheless retaliated against Jeice's attack with another swing at Jeice's ribcage. Jeice moaned in pain. What the hell was that bat made of? Even with his enhanced battle armor and coupled with the fact that the round had already just begun, the bat was still able to break through it like paper. It's not like this guy's speed was impressive. He could easily outmaneuver him if he felt like it, but he'd have to avoid close-quarter combat if he wanted to keep his face intact and if he wanted to make this round last as long as the others. Jeice leaped back from Metal Bat and fired a red energy beam. Metal Bat dodged the attack and hurtled himself toward Jeice, but Jeice flew up into the air before he had the chance to swing his bat. Jeice smiled. "Hey, you bloke, how are you gonna get me when I'm up here? You're gonna try and swat me down with your teeny tiny bat?" "Very tempting, I gotta say," replied Metal Bat. "Yeah, well, let's see you mock this." Jeice bent both of his elbows backward, and from his palms came several very small yet copious numbers of red energy beams. Metal Bat bucked his body in preparation for the energy blasts. The blasts came pelting down onto the ground like giant hailstones, striking everything on the ground. Metal Bat rapidly deflected the blasts with his bat as fast as he could, with a frantic and hectic sweeping in his movements. The sheer multitude of the beams made it difficult for Metal Bat to deflect all of the tiny finger blasts, and once they finally stopped coming, Metal Bat scanned his body, and he grimaced. Across his body, around 20 tiny holes had ripped through his jacket, a few of them managing to pierce deeply enough to draw a little blood. "That's what you get, you daft bastard," shouted Jeice. "Wait, you seriously think this is gonna keep me down?" replied Metal Bat with cockiness palpable in his voice. "I've tanked hits 100 times worse than that and still stood standing. You're gonna have to do better than that." "Aw, piss off, you bloody wanker. If you're not gonna bring the heat, then it looks like I'm gonna have to kick this up a notch." Metal Bat slammed his bat down onto the ground, the force from the blow so great that the stone tiles flew up from their foundation. Metal Bat raised his bat and swung, hitting the stone tiles midair. At amazing speed, the stone tiles were shot up towards Jeice. The red alien, however, did not opt to dodge, but instead, he struck each of the stone tiles as they were about to hit him. One by one, the stone tiles were shattered into dozens of tiny little stone pebbles, falling onto the ground, the multitudinous numbers of pebbles creating a tiny hill of pebbles. "Huh, you fell for it." Jeice looked down, and Metal Bat was gone. "Aw piss." Jeice tilted his head up, and sure enough, Metal Bat had jumped up into the air, positioned just a few feet above him, with both of his elbows raised above his head with the grip of his hands firmly grasped around his bat. The 17-year-old hero let out a resounding shout, and flung his bat as hard as he could, right into his head. Alas, the red alien was not deterred by this. Jeice, in a quick and desperate act to not have his face smashed, put both of his hands up to catch the bat. To both his and Metal Bat's shock, Jeice actually managed to stop the bat in its tracks. The Australian alien beamed in delight. "You ain't got nothin', bloke." Jeice spoke with a tone of confidence, but he was fighting as hard as he could not to scream at the top of his lungs. He felt his palms were already swelling, and he could already see small trickles of blood staining his gloves. But this anger only served as fuel. Jeice's eyes sharpened like daggers, and Metal Bat could hear groans of anger emanating from his opponent. "Wanker." Jeice threw the bat downward to the ground, bringing Metal Bat down with it due to his iron grip on the bat. Jeice propelled himself downward to meet Metal Bat's fiery gaze. Jeice's gaze was enthralled in flames as well. When their eyes met, a fiery storm bellowing and consuming the entire field with its intensity. With a silent and swift movement, Jeice extended his right arm out to his side. Metal Bat gave him a confused look, but the confused look was instantly replaced with what he saw next. From Jeice's hand, a red blade of energy took form, its crimson glow shining brightly even in the sunny day. Both pride and a new change in tactics was what made Jeice use his energy blade. If he was able to block all of Metal Bat's attacks with his energy blade, it wouldn't take long before Jeice would find an opening and finish this guy once and for all. All he'd need to do was be careful, and he'd be fine. "So I guess you finally decided to step up to the plate." "You're bloomin' right. I didn't want to use this since it's the special move of that freaking amateur salsa. Bloomin' arse." Jeice bent his knees and shot Metal Bat a fiery and passionate gaze of fury. "Now you'll get to see the true blue power of the Ginyu force's second in command." "That's what I like to hear. Bring it on." The two opponents sprinted toward each other, steel and energy clashing once again. The flames of destruction continued to run rampant throughout the cities. Men, women, and children of all cities were scared beyond what their emotional tolerance could take. Bereft of almost any light or hope that heroes could rescue them, many citizens could only wait as the monsters attacking would eventually find them and do away with them. Some few fortunate citizens might have had the good fortune of being met by some B-class and C-class heroes, even a few A-class heroes if the situation could allow. But even the heroes of the Hero Association couldn't fend off against the demon-level monsters, for the sad reality was that more than half of the heroes were basically civilians themselves. 20 degrees Celsius class heroes couldn't entertain a demon-level monster. but for a select few citizens who had the extreme luck and privilege of being served by the finest heroes the Hero Association had to offer. They could rest easy and go about their regular business, because they knew that these heroes would protect them no matter what kind of monsters would run rampant in their cities. In the most attacked city on the planet, 30 monsters of all shapes and sizes, with fangs as long as bananas, claws as sharp as swords, and speeds that rivaled a speeding train, were all swarming in droves to take out the protector of Q City, the guard dog of his hometown, the S-class hero Watchdog Man. But shockingly, stupefyingly, despite all 30 monsters attacking at the same time, Watchdog Man pounced on them and did his act. With little more than pounding on the monsters' bodies, the monsters' guts spilled out. This pattern continued in a consecutive pattern, until in less than a minute, all 30 monsters had been taken care of. Watchdog Man scratched his ear with his hind leg like the dog he acted as, standing over the huge pile of dead bodies he had just finished eliminating. All around him, the citizens cheered him on, taking pictures, marveling at the amazing capabilities of such an awesome hero. Because they knew as long as this hero was protecting them, Q City was in fact the safest city on the planet. You call this an attack? Please. The bodies of at least a dozen heroes lied on the ground, shaking and convulsing. On all of their bodies, there were puncture holes, with yellow drops of ooze leaking out, mixing with the crimson blood to make a disgusting orange mixture that stained the roads. Standing over them was the monstrous, cold-blooded beast preying over the paralyzed heroes. This monster was a giant female snake, with the upper body of a human, and everything downward being the body of a serpent. Her hair wasn't hair at all, but instead multiple snakes with yellow eyes. The snake cackled in delight. I am eyesight. My poisons are no match for even the strongest of monsters. What makes you think that you tiny humans have even a slimmer of a chance of beating me? There were only a few heroes that were still standing to combat the monster standing before them. Darkness Blade, Golden Ball, and Spring Mustachio. They had all tried their most elite attacks, but all they had managed to do was piss this snake off. The only reason they hadn't been bitten too was because they'd been fast enough, but primarily because she hadn't targeted them. Until now. What do we do? Said Spring Mustachio. Well, in a lame man's terms, we're fucked, replied Golden Ball. Well said, replied Eyesight in a sadistic tone. But wait, as a snake-based monster, she had the unique ability to sense the heat signature of all living beings. And at the moment, she senses a heat signature coming straight for her. That heat, it's human, but how is it so big? From the wall, the S-class hero Pig God burst forth in all of his obese glory, looking a little worn out from all the monsters he had to fight. The A and B class heroes all took a breath of relief. An S-class hero. It looks like the heroes had been saved. Hey you guys, I came to help. But why'd you come through the wall? Said Darkness Blade. Not that I'm not grateful for your arrival. I chose the shortest route from the noises I was hearing. But man, that kinda tired me out. I'm pretty hungry too. All of the snakes on Eyesight's head lunged for the S-class hero. Eating a guy with all that sweat is disgusting. Guess I'll have to settle on poisoning you. Now drop dead, FATASS. But Eyesight's confident demeanor quickly changed to confusion when he saw that this opponent didn't even flinch when her multiple snakes bit him. What in the name of? Before she had the chance to comprehend how very thick the layers of fat shielding Pig God were, the S-class hero grabbed Eyesight and shoved her inside his mouth. Her screams were muffled by Pig God's mouth, but once the rest of Eyesight's body followed, the screams quickly died out as stomach acids dissolved the monster in seconds. The three spectating heroes stood in astonishment, stupefied that such a powerful monster could be taken out so easily. Wow, did he just? Said Golden Ball. Yes he did, replied Spring Mustachio. Wait, Darkness Blade's face lit up in concern. What about her poisons? The other two heroes mimicked Darkness Blade's worried face, but they all soon stopped once they realized that nothing was happening to Pig God. Meh, it was alright food. My stomach and liver can metabolize any kinds of poison, so don't worry about it. All I gotta do is move around is all. Pig God looked up, and on the peak of the horizon, he could see more monsters storming through the city, spreading chaos per usual. Well, I'm gonna go deal with any other monsters I see. You guys all good? The heroes gave stunned and silent nods as their only response. Make sure that the other heroes get to a hospital. Was all the heroes could say. Well then, I'm off. And with that, the S-class hero wadded off to live up to his heroic title as Pig God. In a soft voice, Darkness Blade said, "That's an S-class hero for you." 2 cities. In W City, the city's protector, Heavy Kong, laid injured and defeated by, in an ironic touch, Martial Gorilla. The monster was walking with an aggravated pacing in his steps and a cigar in his mouth, fuming to himself about the pathetically meek level he was categorized into by the Hero Association and taunting for any heroes to come out and face him. "What the hell's going on here? Why hasn't a single hero come out to fight me? What's the matter? You all ran home to your mamas. Come on." It's the mighty Martial Gorilla, the one who took out this city's pathetic excuse of a hero named Heavy Kong. Come at me. But what this primitive primate failed to realize was that a hero was in fact planning to fight him at that very moment. It was an S-class hero, in fact, and the only mutant to ever join the Hero Association, Zombiman. Hiding behind the corner of a building, Zombiman was carefully evaluating and observing this mysterious being. It seems like this guy's gotten a bit too full of himself after beating a class hero. If he keeps on rambling like this, we might even be lucky enough to smoke out his nest of monsters, thought Zombiman. The ends of Martial Gorilla's mouth slightly curved up when he saw a man with a white sweater and white sweatpants walking calmly through the street. Finally, a guy that looks ripped. He's walking around town like it's a stroll in the park. If it's a civilian, he's got some real balls. "Hey you," Martial Gorilla shouted out to this stranger. "Are you a pro hero? Look at me." Zombiman's eyes widened. Oh fuck, he's about to assault a civilian. Change of plans. Zombiman began sprinting while reaching his right hand into his coat pocket to draw his weapon. It's a pain in the ass, but I have to bring him alive and force him spill the beans about what he knows. Yes, several meters away, the unknown civilian turned to meet Martial Gorilla's eyes, and when he did, Martial Gorilla gasped. "What the fuck? A gorilla? Aren't you a gorilla yourself?" Martial Gorilla was a little slow to respond. When he did, his speech was a bit delayed and filled with curiosity. "What the hell are ya? A free monster? Never seen you around the association. You aren't just a freakish ape like human, are ya?" The other gorilla just looked at him as if he were babbling about nonsense. "What in the world is a free monster? What are you going on about?" The S-class hero had stopped himself just quickly enough to evade being spotted, choosing instead to eavesdrop on these 2 individuals. How strange. They seem to be conversing. Are they partners? Accomplices? "My name is Armored Gorilla. I'm just trying to buy groceries. Although every market seems to be closed right now. Do you happen to know why?" Martial Gorilla's face contorted in anger. "You walking around with a wallet buying shit. You're bowing your head to the human system. You're a disgrace to all gorilla monsters." Armored Gorilla simply stared at Martial Gorilla with a blank face. "Wow, man. Dunno what to say. If you're standing against us, you're gonna die right here." Martial Gorilla grabbed his knife and swung it toward Armored Gorilla's neck. Gorilla-style knife justu. Banana slash. But instead of blood being drawn by the blade, all it did was shatter the moment it made contact with Armored Gorilla. Martial Gorilla's cigar was broken in half when a metallic fist hit Martial Gorilla square in the face, knocking him out in an instant. "You wanna cause trouble, do it somewhere else." Zombiman viewed this very short and one-sided battle, and decided to switch up his strategy. Change of target. "I'll follow that one." Zombiman stealthily trailed behind Armored Gorilla, unsure of what kind of mysteries he had behind that white sweater and placid face. But what this detective didn't realize was that the hunter was being hunted. Hovering several dozen meters in the air, 2 of the Frieza soldiers, Carmath and Orlan, observed the scuffle and were interested at why exactly some unknown person was tailing behind these anthropomorphic gorillas. The 200 Frieza soldiers had decided to span out based on the areas with the highest accumulations of energy readings, with there being 26 of them overall. Carmath and Orlan had seen several different battles between monsters of all different shapes and sizes and what they presumed were the indigenous inhabitants of this planet combating them, each of them wearing different garbs. The 2 Frieza soldiers would have fought them, but their energy readings were too strong for both of them. But neither of them had seen a person actually trailing another. "Carmath, what are we doing standing up and watching them?" said Orlan. Orlan was of the same race as Apule. He was a soldier with bright yellow skin and large fangs protruding out of his mouth, and combined with his blood-red eyes, made him a rather scary-looking individual. "Let's just go down there and kill him. His energy level is only 2,000. You've got a power level of 5,000. You could take him down no sweat." "Orlan, you need to calm down." Carmath was a soldier with a long face and cold, calculating eyes. He had long, spiky brown hair similar to Vegeta, and his ears were larger than most of his comrades, the ends sharply pointed. Unlike his bull-headed associate, he didn't think that just blatantly charging around and attacking whoever they saw would get him anywhere. If this were just any regular hero versus monster thing, then I'd probably take action. But let me ask you this, why is that man trailing them? If he's a civilian, then there's no way that he'd be following a monster. But if he was a regular hero like those others we saw before, then why would he wait to attack? He must know something that we don't. It's in our best interest to find out more about this guy. Why? Carmath turned to his partner and said, we need this to move up in the ranks. You think we're valuable? We're practically trash. If Lord Frieza was just having a bad day, he'd kill us to vent off some steam. I should know, I've seen him do it. So unless you've got a better plan to move up in the ranks or found a way to make Lord Frieza find us worthy of something, I want to know exactly why this guy is tailing an anthropomorphic gorilla that could beat a monster in a single punch. If we're lucky, we might find something that Lord Frieza would find useful. You've got it. Alright. Don't worry. I know a thing or two. Just stick by me, and we might be able to live full lives. Thousands of miles away, the battle between Jeice and Metal Bat was lit with the passion expected of such flamboyant and prideful fighters like them. As each of them swung their weapons, sparks of friction came to life through every parry, every time their weapons made contact. The speed at which they were fighting and the strength each of them had only served as a catalyst to further ignite the sparks and increase the air pressure formed through the energy in every blow. Hey Captain, didn't Jeice say that sword technique was Salsa's? Asked Guldo. Yes, that's correct, Guldo. Isn't he the leader of Cooler's armored squadron? I have to admit, I'm rather jealous I didn't come up with that technique myself. That smug bastard. He thinks he's so cool with his Cooler armored squadron. That arrogant, narcissistic asshole. Guldo gave his captain a confused look. Captain, oh, I'm sorry. It's just that I have a beef with Salsa. We competed to see who would get to be the leader of the armored squadron, and in the end, I lost. So Salsa got to serve under Cooler as the leader of Cooler's armored squadron, and I had to serve under Frieza as the leader of the Ginyu force. You sound awfully disappointed by that. Captain Ginyu's heart jumped out and into the sky when he heard Frieza's angered voice. Captain Ginyu immediately turned to his master and spoke in a fear-ridden and apologetic tone. But that was before I realized how amazing of a leader you were. I'd take you over your brother in a heartbeat if I was forced to choose again. Frieza gave Captain Ginyu an icy stare that lasted for what seemed like an eternity to Captain Ginyu. But Frieza finally broke the silence, only saying, "You're damn right you would." Nothing more was said, and the spectators turned their attention back to the ongoing battle. Jeice swung his energy blade across Metal Bat's chest, but Metal Bat ducked and avoided the attack. Metal Bat swung his bat, attempting to sweep Jeice's feet with his bat, but Jeice parried his bat with his energy blade. Jeice opened up the palm of his left hand and fired a red energy blast. The energy blast hit Metal Bat in the stomach and sent him flying several feet. But Metal Bat quickly planted his feet into the ground to stop his mid-air flight, and once he was properly balanced, he batted the energy wave away with his bat. Too slow. Metal Bat was quickly met with Jeice, who was just mere inches away from him. Jeice motioned his blade to cut off Metal Bat's head, but Metal Bat ducked again just in the nick of time. At least, that's what he thought, until he noticed a few clumps of black stuff fall onto the ground. No, Metal Bat touched the top of his hair, and he couldn't feel his hair was in the right place as it should have been. He looked at the reflection made by his bat, however muddled the picture was, to see how bad the damage was. When he made out the reflection, he nearly banged the bat on his forehead. The pompadour hairstyle he was accustomed to combing his hair with had been cut off. Now, the entire front of his hair looked completely uneven with the length of the rest of his hair. He shouldn't have done that. Jeice slightly shuddered when he heard the dark and rancorous tone in his speech. This didn't sound good. Jeice was right. Metal Bat lunged for Jeice and began swinging with a frantic frenzy. Jeice's eyes widened as he continued to block all of Metal Bat's attacks. But as every second passed, it was becoming more and more difficult to keep up. Jeice didn't understand why this was, but the realization struck him: Metal Bat's power was increasing. He didn't understand how he was able to increase his power and speed in such a short amount of time. RWWAHHH. Metal Bat swung his bat with the intention of fracturing Jeice's arm, but Jeice brought up his energy blade before he had the chance. Except this time, as metal and energy heatingly collided once again, it was metal that managed to overcome energy. Jeice was sent to his right with his feet still planted in the ground. The stone tiles were split in half by Jeice's feet. Jeice planted his feet even further into the ground, and managed to stop himself in his tracks, albeit only 5 tiles away from the edge of the arena. That's defo gonna leave a mark. Ifo? Questioned Metal Bat. You're Australian illiterate, dickless. Jeice extended both of his hands, and now two blades were conjured up, their heated energy wrapping around Jeice's hands like warm mittens on a cold winter night. Double blades. Well, you pushed me to this. Jeice flew toward Metal Bat, and the exchange of parries resumed yet again. With the double blades, there was, as would be expected, a double increase of blows. Through the kinetic force of the exchange of blows, the edges of the stadium began to crumble from the amazing force and vibrations from the two baseball players. Even with Metal Bat's improving speed and strength, he was having a difficult time blocking these double blades. But that running mouth of his wasn't agreeing, and it shouted, "You're gonna have to do better than that." Better than that? Aye. Well then, how about this? Jeice dissipated the energy blades from both of his hands, flew up into the air, lifted his right arm up above his head, and yelled out, "Crusher Ball." Jeice threw his hand down, and from his palm, a red energy ball blasted out, flying at a great speed toward Metal Bat. On the sidelines, Bang saw yet another one of these powerful energy blasts, with the same repeated concern as before. "Metal Bat, you need to." His older brother grabbed him firmly on the shoulder. Bang turned his head to his older brother with confusion, but when he saw Bomb's look of seriousness, Bang understood what his brother meant. At this point, trying to convince them is a fruitless effort. They're too proud to concede and avoid such confrontations, or else they couldn't look at themselves in the mirror without feeling a pang of shame. Let's be honest, when we were younger, how many times did you charge opponents head-on without a second thought? Bang let out a small chuckle. Fair point. Bang looked back up to see Metal Bat, who was bending his knees and positioning himself as if he were on home plate, anxiously waiting for the fast ball to cross his path, smirking in delight and anticipation. But still, just relax. I could sense from this child a fervent passion. Let's just wait and see. The Crusher Ball was closing in, only serving to excite Metal Bat even more. Bring it. Metal Bat swung as hard as he could. When the Crusher Ball made contact with the bat, the reaction was instantaneous. Like the energy clashes before, sparks of small lightning lit up around Metal Bat. Within the first few seconds of this clash, Metal Bat was pushed back, quickly realizing the mistake he made in the process. The pressure building between the bat and the ball of energy transferred to Metal Bat's fingers and spread throughout the rest of his body, causing his entire body to tense. Up in the air, Jeice laughed in delight. Haha, see, I told ya I was the true blue deal. Metal Bat was beginning to wish that he hadn't run his mouth off like that, because he was beginning to feel like his entire body was shaking from the pressure this Crusher Ball was creating. Metal Bat's body was beginning to vibrate as he quickly lost control of the situation. The Crusher Ball began to increase in size and ferocity, pushing Metal Bat further and further back. The heroes spectating them grew weary with concern, and even Bomb, who had been confident in Metal Bat's abilities, was no longer so certain Metal Bat was up to the task. "Metal Bat, keep it together," shouted Super Alloy Darkshine. GOHHH. Metal Bat couldn't do it. He'd never seen any attack as powerful as this. Bomb shouted to the S-Class hero, "Metal Bat, remember your sister." This comment caused the 17-year-old to veer his head and look straight into Bomb's eyes. "What? Think about what you'll be leaving behind. Your sister's relying on you to come back to her. Are you really prepared to leave that behind?" yelled Bomb. "You have indomitable will. You have limitless capacity," added Bang. "I've seen you in battle. You're a hero to the people and your sister. Now prove it." "You're right." Metal Bat tightened the grasp on his bat, and his teeth clenched together as hard as they could. "This ain't nothing." The willpower came bursting forth, and the hero slammed the Crusher Ball into the sky. Metal Bat looked up into the sky as the Crusher Ball made its way up into the heavens, smiling with glee and pride. "Ha, home run." No, Metal Bat looked back down and saw Jeice closed in on him at the moment he let his guard down once again. "Actually, it's a foul ball, arse." Before Metal Bat could defend himself, Jeice came in and knocked the bat out of Metal Bat's hands. Metal Bat's eyes widened like saucers, and he attempted to desperately grab his bat. But it was too late. The bat was sent tossing back into the rocky terrain, several meters outside of the boundaries of the ring. Metal Bat's smile disappeared completely, and Jeice beamed in delight. "What are you gonna do without your bat, huh?" Jeice punched Metal Bat in the gut, causing him to let out an oomph of pain. Metal Bat groaned in anger, then threw his right fist to Jeice's face, but Jeice simply caught it like it was nothing, his smile still clearly palpable on his face. Jeice continued his assault with a right front kick that nailed Metal Bat in his chin, causing him to be sent flying up into the air. Jeice followed up with a right elbow that smashed Metal Bat's nose. The force of Jeice's attack caused Metal Bat to be sent into the ground, fracturing the stone tiles below and placing Metal Bat's lower torso below the ground. "Aw, what's the matter, mate?" Jeice floated back to the ground, standing above Metal Bat's body. The Australian alien grabbed Metal Bat by the hair and kneed him in the chest. The 17-year-old S-class hero grunted in pain, and Jeice continued his ruthless assault. Jeice let go of Metal Bat's hair, then surged toward him with a barrage of strikes. Metal Bat attempted to counterattack with his own kicks and punches, but Jeice was too fast, too strong for Metal Bat to fight without his bat. "Looks like without that little bat of yours, you nothing but a pathetic bloke." Jeice hammered Metal Bat with a right hook across his face as Metal Bat stammered back, now standing only 3 stone tiles away from the edge of the arena. "You're a disgrace to all baseball players across the universe. A real baseball player's gotta have spunk without their baseball or their bat. And you ain't got nothin'." Jeice lifted Metal Bat by the collar of his shirt until he was placed directly above the edge of the arena. Metal Bat's body was now laid limp in the air. He was done for. "And when I'm done with you, I'm gonna find that little sister of yours and show her you dead, lifeless body right before I stab her myself. Now isn't that grand?" But Metal Bat gave no response. His body was still laid lifeless in midair. Jeice let out a huff of disappointment. "I'm done here." Jeice threw his right fist at Metal Bat's face, but Metal Bat caught the fist with his right hand. At first, Jeice dismissed it as a final pathetic attempt of defiance, but all of a sudden, he felt his hand being crushed. Jeice screamed out in pain. Metal Bat pushed himself back into the arena and kept domineering over Jeice as he crushed Jeice's hand. Jeice's purple aura flashed to life around him, attempting to increase his power to escape Metal Bat's death grip. Jeice lifted his left hand and smashed Metal Bat's right hand, but it didn't budge. Jeice gasped, "What in the name of?" Jeice kept on hammering Metal Bat's fist like his life depended on it, which it did, and only by the 10th strike did Metal Bat's grip loosen enough to allow Jeice to escape his steel grasp. Jeice groaned and moaned in pain, clutching his hand and blowing on it to alleviate the pain. Jeice looked back up to Metal Bat, and when he saw the intensity in Metal Bat's eyes, he actually shivered in fear. Yes, in fear. Metal Bat's entire face was scrunched in unrelenting fury. His eyes were now fiery infernos of passion and anger that snuffed out whatever small smoldering waves of passion Jeice had before. Up with the rest of the space pirates, Goldo and Captain Ginyu gave each other nervous stares. With those small moments of eye contact, they instantly knew they were both of them were thinking the same. They both clicked their scouters on and honed in on Metal Bat's energy reading. "Holy crap, his power level. It's rising by the second," stated Goldo. "How is this possible?" By the spectating hero's side, Garu said, "He pushed the family button. He shouldn't have done that." Back on the fighting grounds, Jeice felt frustration and anger beginning to bubble up inside of him. "What, you think just because you hurt Ma hand means that you got a chance? You're wrong." Jeice shouted as he forced the energy in his body to come to life, empowering him and causing the terrain around him to quake. With the new power coursing through him, Jeice launched himself toward Metal Bat and attacked with a series of punches. The Australian alien attacked with all of his might, but somehow Metal Bat was dodging and blocking all of them, and he didn't even look fazed. "You called me a joke. You're an entire act of your own," said Metal Bat in a condescending tone. Metal Bat returned the courtesy attack with only a single left punch to Jeice's chest, and in less than a second, Jeice was propelled backward with amazing force, the shockwaves of the punch strong enough to create cracks in the stone around them. It was Jeice who was now at the edge of the arena. Jeice's eyes were drenched with disbelief and shock. He stared at the wound inflicted by Metal Bat just now, and he let out another gasp. The strike from Metal Bat's fist had managed to pierce his armor deeper than when he struck Jeice with his bat. He touched the wound with his glove, and on contact, his blood stained his gloves. Jeice clenched his fist. "That's it. Time for my ultimate technique." Jeice lifted his right arm up above his head and yelled out, "Crusher Volcano." Instead of one crusher ball, multiple crusher balls came forth from his palm, seeking out for their target. Metal Bat wasn't intimidated, not in the slightest. Metal Bat began sprinting as fast as he could toward the giant energy balls. One by one, Metal Bat swatted them aside, each of them exploding within seconds of contact with Metal Bat's hands. From Jeice's palm, a final, much larger crusher ball burst out with amazing power. "You're out." The crusher ball and Metal Bat struck each other, and more energy and pressure burst forth like a raging river. Jeice laughed. His victory was assured. At least, that's what he thought. The bright light from the crusher ball began to wane, and from split middle, Metal Bat burst forward. His eyes darkened with the pumping anger still flowing through him. No. How? Home run, motherfucker. Metal Bat swung his right fist, hitting Jeice square in the nose. The momentum created from the blow continued onward, traveling far outside of the arena. Jeice's body was pummeled and beaten as Metal Bat's attack split through the ground, sending rocks and debris flying up into the air. The short travel finally stopped when the duo reached a very large boulder. The boulder cracked and crumbled away from the foundation, sending up dust clouds. The dust quickly cleared, and from the clouds of dust stood Metal Bat with his foot firmly planted over Jeice's chest. Metal Bat spoke, but his voice was so serious and intimidating, one would have to have steel balls not to be slightly fearful of it. If you ever touch my sister, I swear to God, I'll make your death as slow and as painful as I humanly can. You got that? Jeice gave Metal Bat one final, fear-ridden look before he passed out on the ground. The 17-year-old stared at his lifeless body for a very long time, the tension broiling and bubbling as the people could only wonder what Metal Bat was thinking or what he would do to Jeice. But after a long wait, Metal Bat spit on Jeice's face just as Raccoon had done to Puri prisoner, and jumped back onto the arena. Come on, Captain, you're up next. The S-Class hero shouted up to Captain Ginyu, who was staring at Metal Bat with a cold, emotionless face. If that pathetic excuse of a fighter was really your second in command, then you don't stand a chance. And I still want my payback for when you kicked me in the Metal Bat's sentence was abruptly cut off when he felt Captain Ginyu's fist pummel his stomach. The breath was taken right out of Metal Bat with only that single punch. Metal Bat moved his neck up to meet Captain Ginyu's eyes, and he could see his eyes were still as cold as before. His mouth pursed in a straight line. I've had enough of your tomfoolery. Captain Ginyu struck Metal Bat across the face with his left hand, and finished his assault with a left side kick. Metal Bat was knocked backwards with nearly twice the speed and force Jeice had just been ended with, and Metal Bat was sent crashing through the very boulder that Tatsumaki herself had been defeated. And just as Tatsumaki, Metal Bat landed on the ground with a singular thud. Guldo. Yes, Captain. Take Jeice to the healing pod, ordered Captain Ginyu. I don't want him to have any permanent scars. Of course, Captain. Guldo immediately did what he said, flew down to his teammate's side, and put him over his shoulders, being careful to not drop him. Captain Ginyu turned his attention back to the S-Class heroes, who were all still rather shocked by the quick action taken by Captain Ginyu and the climactic ending to the spectacular 5th round of the Frieza Mania. You've beaten almost my entire team with utter disgrace and malignity. That is something I will never forgive any of you for doing. Captain Ginyu pointed to the group of S-Class heroes and stated with a vociferous voice, now which one of you will face the illustrious Captain Ginyu? The S-Class heroes gave each other short and questionable glances, unsure of who wanted to have the privilege of fighting the final round. After enough glances had been exchanged, it was none other than Bang, the master of the flowing water rock smashing fist fighting style, who stepped up to the plate. His brother grabbed his shoulder. Are you sure about this, Bang? Bang nodded. Tend to Metal Bat. Check if he's alright. I can take care of this by myself. I know you can. The two gave each other small smiles. Bang leapt up to the arena, which was already considerably damaged from the 5th round, and took a fighting stance. Captain Ginyu crossed his arms and calmly stared at his opponent. So you will be my opponent, old man. I wouldn't underestimate me if I were you. Bang took a fighting pose and bent his knees. I might be old, but I'm quite experienced. You better know what you're getting into. Likewise, I wasn't appointed the captain of the Ginyu Force for nothing. The only beings in this universe that have surpassed me are Lord Frieza and his brother Cooler. Now get ready. The final round is about to commence. Frieza let out a new of curiosity. This will be quite an interesting fight. Now let us commence the final round of the Frieza Mania. Frieza waved his hand down and shouted, "Let the final round begin." Just as the rounds before, the two combatants disappeared in an instant. Milliseconds later, they reappeared for brief intervals, the force from their blows sending shockwaves much more powerful than any battles prior. On the sidelines, even Atomic Samurai was unable to properly track his enemy's movements, with Super Alloy Darkshine only able to somewhat keep up with their movements. The only ones who were able to see the battle in full clarity were Bomb and Lord Frieza himself. As Frieza had stated before, this was truly going to be the pinnacle of the Frieza Mania. Besides the other heroes, Garu snarled in fury. To know that there was still such a monumental gap in strength between the old fart and himself, even after all of the heroes he had defeated during the hero hunt, was a big blow to his pride. If Garu fought the old fart now, he wouldn't stand a chance. Likewise, that captain was no pushover either, and seeing that he looked down to Frieza in such a submissive manner, Garu wasn't so sure about fighting him one-on-one. On the battlefield, Ginyu and Bang were exchanging a series of powerful strikes with their sharpened nerves and iron fists. Thoughts were racing through both the combatants' minds as the battle had commenced. For Bang, Jinyu's fists felt like iron balls pummeling against him, yet he was able to strike with such accuracy that was uncanny in most monsters he had faced. Ginyu was at least in the upper echelon of dragon level, that was for sure. On the other end of the thinking spectrum, Ginyu was fascinated and at the same time baffled that such an old man could possess such unbelievably strong power hidden in his punches. Not only that, but his speed was far beyond what he would have considered possible, even for Ginyu himself. Coupled with his amazing strength, Ginyu knew that this would be a difficult battle. Captain Ginyu struck Bang with a right side kick, but Bang caught it and twirled it around, causing Captain Ginyu to spin around multiple times midair. Captain Ginyu groaned in anger, and while he was spinning, fired a consecutive barrage of energy attacks. The purple rays of energy flew out everywhere, exploding midair just seconds after being launched, destroying the stone tiles nearby and damaging the arena even more. Bang did a backflip and evaded the energy blasts. Captain Ginyu turned his body vertically and landed squarely on his feet to stop himself from spinning. The captain raised his two hands and fired the same barrage of energy waves at his opponent. The martial artist initiated evasive maneuvers and stealthily dodged the attacks. The purple energy waves lit up the arena with a bright purple glow, forcing the spectators to shield their eyes from the light. Bang too covered his eyes from the blinding light. But that was a bad mistake on his part. Almost immediately after, Bang felt a fist gutting him in the stomach. Bang was sent flying up in the air, going out of the bounds of the ring. It's already over, shouted Captain Ginyu. But a master martial artist wouldn't be defeated by a technicality such as a ring out. While he was still being propelled midair, Bang began spinning his body to change his trajectory, until he landed on one of the 4 pillars of the ring. The master martial artist bent his knees and body back, and sprung to Captain Ginyu, attempting to attack with a left knee. Captain Ginyu met his knee head-on, and the fighters initiated another short-range exchange of kicks and punches. Quickly after the short barrage of blows, Ginyu managed to land a powerful right-side kick that hit Bang square in the chest. The martial artist let out a minor grunt of pain. The captain followed up his attack with a right uppercut that struck Bang square in the chin, causing him to fly up a few feet into the air. Captain Ginyu jumped up to the sky, clamped both of his fists together, and swung downward at Bang. Bang was sent flying back into the ground, but just before he was about to be sent crashing into the arena, Bang put his arms out and began a series of very fluid backflips. Once Bang quickly finished the series of backflips, Bang firmly planted his feet on the ground and sprung up to attack Ginyu with a right elbow. Captain Ginyu met his attack with his own elbow, creating a large, very sharp burst of air pressure that fractured the arena below them and caused 2 of the pillars to crack and fall onto the ground. While they were falling to the ground, the two continued to fiercely fight each other. While midair, Ginyu chopped Bang on the side of his neck. At the same time, Bang struck Ginyu hard in the solar plexus. The two let out groans of pain, but it was obvious that Jinyu's groan was louder than Bang's. When both of them made it to the ground, Bang swept Captain Jinyu's feet from under him, causing Ginyu to lose his footing and fall to the side. Bang clamped both of his fists together and struck Ginyu with a very quick jab. The captain barely had enough time to block the strike, and he was sent back first into the ground, creating another large crevice in the arena. The captain was somewhat slow to get up, having to momentarily regain his senses. Ginyu then calmly brushed the dirt off of his armor and let out a hum of curiosity and mild surprise. "You're quite something there. Just as I thought, this wasn't going to be an easy battle." "Likewise," replied Bang. "You're definitely not the leader of your squadron for nothing." But Bang crossed his arms in an utterly confident manner, staring coldly at his opponent. "In the end, it isn't enough. If this is the zenith of your powers, then this match is already over." Water stream rock smashing fist. Before Captain Ginyu had the chance to retort, Bang sprinted up to Captain Ginyu and blitzed him with a series of attacks that Captain Ginyu wasn't prepared for. Yelling in rage, Captain Ginyu threw a right jab at Bang's face. Bang met his fist with his left fist. But to Jinyu's complete shock, Bang was able to nullify the force of Jinyu's punch, yet his hand continued to move across his arm and struck Ginyu in the forehead with his fingertips. The force of the attack propelled Ginyu back away from Bang. The alien rubbed his forehead and let out a slight moan. He looked back up to his opponent and stared at him with awe. His movements were so fluid, he was able to defensively meet Ginyu's attack, yet at the same time, managed to strike Ginyu with twice the power as before. Bang sprinted up to Captain Ginyu to follow up his attack. Captain Ginyu held his arms up to defend himself from the onslaught of blows that were about to come his way. But it wasn't enough. Captain Ginyu felt himself being batted around by Bang's fists like he was just a rag doll. It was unbelievable. Even in defensive stance, this infuriating man was able to expertly strike him at his body's natural weak points. Hell, even the bones in the back of his hands were being targeted, causing him to feel pain shoot up through his hands. Up in his hover chair, Frieza let out a hum of entertainment and mild amazement, only moments into the battle. And already Frieza could see the unbelievable talent in this liver-spotted, hunchified old man. It wasn't just his strength or his speed, it was his precision, his technique. Even from up here, Frieza witnessed the way in which the old man was able to strike Ginyu's weak spots, with his fingers no less. With that kind of precision, that old man could defeat an opponent twice as strong as him. Quite a troublesome foe indeed. On the battleground, Captain Ginyu tried hopelessly to retaliate. But it was no use. Every time Captain Ginyu attacked him, Bang was there to neutralize and counter his attacks with twice the force. This endless barrage continued to pummel Captain Ginyu until he was standing about 2 tiles from the edge of the arena. Instinctive fearfulness overtook Captain Ginyu's heart, and before Bang managed to land the final blow, Captain Ginyu put both of his hands out and fired a blast of purple energy, which hit Bang straight in the chest, but ultimately did little damage. The captain was breathing heavily. His arms were at his sides, and he could see drips of blood falling on the ground stemming from his lip and streaming down his chin. If the battle kept going on like this, Ginyu would be knocked out. But he didn't know what to do. This old man's speed and reflexes were amazing, far greater than anything he'd ever faced before. He was basically done for. Unless, the realization struck Ginyu, and the captain cracked a very wide smile. The wide smile progressed to a low cackling, and the martial artist's nerves rattled at the sight of this. "What's so funny?" said Bang angrily. "It's just me. But I often find humor in the oddest of places. For example, facing off against a warrior such as yourself," replied Ginyu, his confident smirk still present as he spoke. "And what's so humorous about that?" "Well, I'm not sure humorous is the word. Thrilling perhaps." "Yes, thrilling. That's it." Ginyu continued to laugh to himself, causing Bang to shift uncomfortably in his place. What was he up to? Up in the sky, Guldo and Raccoon gave each other shocked looks. "Is he about to do what I think he is?" said Guldo. "Raccoon thinks so," replied Raccoon. Captain Ginyu suddenly began to shout, the intensity of his voice increasing every second, along with his power level. All around the captain, the ground began to violently shake, as pebbles and other debris began to float up into the air, and the very clouds themselves began to swirl in the sky. The heroes couldn't help but be shocked by the display of power demonstrated at that moment, for none of them had ever seen it before. The power to shake the earth and shift the very sky itself. That power was crazy. Then, the heroes watched as Captain Ginyu raised his arms up to his sides and spread his legs out. Bang saw this and knew that whatever was about to come his way wasn't good. But when Bang tried to move out of the way, he couldn't. It was as if he were frozen in place, unable to even twitch his finger. The martial artist looked at Captain Ginyu and let out a groan of anger. What was all of this in preparation for? The captain finished his shouting and screamed at the top of his lungs. "Change in." Enough. Captain Ginyu immediately halted his special move when he heard that command. The other heroes didn't know why he had stopped, but they looked up, shocked to realize that it was actually Frieza who had given the command. Yes indeed, the mighty Space Emperor had stood up in his chair, staring down at Ginyu and Bang. Ginyu turned to his superior, not understanding what he had done wrong. "My lord, I think I've had enough bread and wine now." Frieza slowly floated off of his chair and into the sky, where he gently landed on the ground and stood face to face with Bang, with Captain Ginyu standing just a few feet behind him. "The reason why I put an end to this duel is that the victor was already decided. But my body switching technique, that would help some, but I can see it in his movements. I can see that both of you have around the same level of speed and power, but his fighting technique is superior in every way. Even if you were to switch bodies, that fighting style is engraved in his mind. With such a powerful technique, I believe that you would quickly lose, even in his body. No, I need to take care of this one myself. I understand." Captain Ginyu bowed his head toward his master, a feeling of guilt and disappointment filling his heart knowing he had failed and knowing Lord Frieza had to step in as he did. "Is there anything else I can do, my lord?" asked Captain Ginyu with defeat and shame palpable in his voice. "Just go back to the rest of your team and watch the spectacle that is about to unfold," replied Frieza. "As you wish, my lord." The defeated captain silently flew off to his 2 remaining subordinates, who immediately comforted him and tried to alleviate his disappointment. "It's alright, Captain," said Guldo. "Raccoon thinks you did a real crackerjack job," added Raccoon, patting him gently on the back as he did so. Captain Ginyu let out a soft sigh. "While I appreciate your support," said Ginyu, "there's no need to sugarcoat it. He was simply too strong for me." Ginyu gently brushed their hands off of him and straightened his body to a more respectable posture. "All we can do now is witness the everlasting and unimaginable power Lord Frieza will display for us now." Lord Frieza was quite surprised with what he'd seen from Earth's warriors. If Vegeta and Nappa had fought any of these heroes, they would have more than likely been terminated in an instant. All of the members of the Ginyu force had fought them to a standstill, their victories only won through cunning tactics and playing to their opponents' weaknesses. "Well, it looks like winners of the Frieza Mania are the heroes." Frieza gave a very slow round of applause, causing the heroes standing on the sidelines to growl in anger. "Give yourself a few pats on the back for that. Well done. Being able to handle all of my most elite soldiers is quite the impressive feat, and for that, I tip my horns to you." But the starting lineup is over. Although he gave no sign of anger, Bang felt a kind of chill emanating from him, causing him to tense up. "Now you've got the main event." Lord Frieza put his hands behind his back and calmly stared at Bang, who had taken a defensive stance and was prepared for the battle that was soon to come. "I must say, you are quite strong," said Frieza. "Never, in my wildest years, would I have imagined that someone had the strength to best Captain Ginyu. And at such an old age no less." Bang gave no response. "I want the pleasure of beating you myself." "Very well." Bang lifted his hands up into the air and primed his fingertips for battle. "Let's begin." "Okay. But first," Frieza clasped his hands together and sliced downward with a swift, singular motion. The arena was split in half, causing both Frieza and Bang to fall to the ground. With another swift movement, Frieza thrust his hands to their sides. The force from his strikes caused the 2 sides of the arena to be thrust at blinding speeds. In seconds, the huge stone halves of the arena crashed and crumpled up as they were stopped by the nearby mountain range. "I just don't feel like rebuilding the arena a second time. Besides, I like my space. Now can we?" "Hold it, old fart." Both fighters turned their heads around to see Garu staring at them with his fists clenched and his lips pursed in a tight line. Whatever doubts he had about facing Frieza before were replaced if your sluggish memory has a hard time remembering. "I believe I called fighting the bossman once the preliminary rounds were over." Frieza let out a small chuckle of amusement. "I never imagined that there would be a fool who'd dare to challenge Frieza. I applaud your overconfidence, sir." "Well, overconfidence or stupidity. Either way, I will enjoy wiping that smug smirk off of your face once you truly grasp the depths of who you are really up against." "Well, if you think this is going to be easy, then you're dead wrong. I am the hero hunter Garu, the monster who has taken on a class and S-class heroes alike. You're just a stepping stone for me to achieve perfect evil." Garu motioned for Bang to step aside with a sardonic flick of his wrists, to which Bang grudgingly conceded to. On the sidelines, or what used to be the sidelines of the ring, the remaining heroes greeted Bang with praise, yet they found it hard to celebrate just yet when they knew that the big bad boss was still standing right in front of them. Bomb clasped his brother's right shoulder and lightly shook it. "You did good, brother," said Bomb. "Appreciated," replied Bang. But Bang's attention wasn't focused on him or his brother, it was focused solely on Garu, and the fight he was prepared to start. Could his disciple really handle such a threat? Bang would have to wait and see. Garu took a fighting pose, while Frieza just kept a calm gaze with his arms still wrapped behind him. "You're about to get a bad case of freezer burn." The square holding cell was lit up in a bright glow. Sitting in the center of this room, Speed of Sound Sonic was having difficulty containing his glee as he watched a blue orb clasped in his hands. He had been about 20 minutes into his new energy training, and already he had managed to have the time it took for him to conjure up this energy ball. It hadn't been easy, but he wasn't going to let a broken body hinder his fighting spirit and desire to reign supreme over Saitama. "Huh, you said that I won't be able to fly," said Sonic to his cellmate and current mentor, whose back was hunched against the wall, his face stone cold, as if he was concentrating very hard on something. "At this rate, I'll be able to take to the skies in only a few days." Nappa said nothing more, not even bothering to chastise Sonic for his arrogant demeanor. Sonic gave Nappa a questionable look. "Sir, what are you doing?" "I'm trying to properly sense what's going on out there." "What are you talking about?" This time, Nappa looked straight into Sonic's eyes and gave him his attention. "Right now, my slimy boss, Lord Frieza, and his elite squadron have arrived on this planet, and all of them have gone toe-to-toe with several fighters. I've felt a lot of very powerful energies more powerful than you and me go down. And at this moment, the captain of Frieza's elite force initiated battle and actually lost. And if that's the case, then there must be some goddamn powerful warriors on this mud ball. I see. But suddenly, Nappa's serious tone changed into a more malevolent anger, and he let out a shout of rage, causing Sonic's energy ball to vanish, and the ninja to slightly move away from Nappa. What is it? Shouted Sonic. I can't take all of this sitting around anymore, replied Nappa. I've been cooped up in here as a prisoner for days on end, unable to break free of my bonds and take my revenge on that disgrace of a Saiyan prince. I am a Saiyan general. I refuse to let myself stand idly by as the tides of battle wash over me. I've had enough, Sonic uneasily said to Nappa. What does that mean? Nappa's voice was cold yet determined when he spoke his next words. It means that I'm busting out of here, no matter what it takes. Nappa walked to the center of the room, standing just in front of Sonic. At the center of the room, Nappa bent his knees, his white aura beginning to flicker to life, making the light from Sonic's energy ball look like a tiny flashlight in comparison. Nappa began shouting angrily as he accumulated whatever energy he had into his throat to prepare his most powerful attack. Breaker Cannon. From his mouth, a huge burst of yellow energy spewed out. For a moment, the attack was violently pushing against the cell wall, unable to break free from the sturdy confines. But then, a crack formed. In a second, that crack became 2 cracks, then 3, then 4, and in mere seconds, the entire wall collapsed as the energy wave broke through. Nappa's breaker cannon then exploded in the air, illuminating the surrounding city with its momentary flash. A week ago, I couldn't have done that, said Nappa to nobody in particular. I guess the rest actually did me some good. I'm feeling stronger than ever. You're leaving. Sonic surprised himself with those words. They had just come out in the spur of the moment, and he hadn't thought about what he said until after he had said it. The heat rose to Sonic's cheeks from the embarrassment of such an open question, and the sincerity laced in it. Nappa turned his head back to Sonic and noticed Sonic's embarrassment. The look on his face had reminded him of a time in a certain upstart prince's youth when that same expression was plastered on his face. But don't get any ideas, you shit-faced prick. Nappa's rude comment caused the redness in his cheeks to quickly disappear, and the two resumed eye contact with each other. Listen to me, Sonic. If I don't return, then just use what I've taught you and hone your abilities the best you can. But what are you gonna do? Nappa turned his head away from Sonic and looked up to the sky. I'm gonna take care of some personal business. I need to do it alone. Nappa didn't need to say anymore, because Sonic knew exactly what Nappa meant with just those few words. Well then, good luck. All it was a killer bidding a killer good luck. Nothing more and nothing less, and both Sonic and Nappa knew it to be true. I don't need luck. Nappa gave Sonic a very small salute, and flew off into the sky without another word. No multitude of words could have been more significant than the look of respect both of them gave each other in those final moments. But whether or not the two warriors understood why was up to them. Are you seeing this? In the Central Communications and Security Center of the Hero Association headquarters, one of the security officers had just witnessed on tape one of the imprisoned mysterious beings blasting the wall with a huge energy wave, then flying off into the sky. The security officer called other workers to his side just to see if they were seeing the same thing he was, and they were. Now, the officer was dialing the number to Bafoy's office as quickly as he could. In the dark confines of Bafoy's underground laboratory, the S-Class hero was working diligently alongside his brother, his assistant, and another S-Class hero, Demon Cyborg, when his phone rang to life. The scientist groaned in agony. What could this be? Well, asked Dr. Cusino. Are you going to answer it? All right. Bafoy grudgingly trotted over to his desk, picked up the phone, and angrily stated, what is it? I am very busy right now, and have no time to address trivial matters. Metal Knight. The voice of the caller sounded rushed and panicked. The dragon-level mysterious being you imprisoned. Yes, what about him? What is it? Spit it out, you fool. It's broken free. It blasted through its cell and flew off into the sky. Bafoy couldn't help but be taken aback by this recent news. The scientist immediately hung up the phone and pulled up the security cameras on his multiple monitors, and sure enough, there was a giant hole in the cell, and one of the prisoners was absent. The other prisoner, however, hadn't taken the opportunity. Bafoy couldn't understand why, but once he took a closer look, Bafoy realized that the prisoner was limping. Then it occurred to him that he still hadn't healed from his injuries. What's happened? Dr. Cusino questioned his brother, but got no answer. The good doctor walked over to Bafoy's side to see what all the commotion was about, then noticed the missing prisoner on the screen monitor. The prisoners broke free? Asked Dr. Kusino. Yes, replied Bafoy. Well then, do something. Bafoy shook his head. I'll send some security drones to keep an eye on that pesky ninja, but there's nothing more I can do about that other one. Bafoy typed several keys into the keyboard, then quickly paced back to resume his work as before. Besides, we have bigger fish to fry. Dr. Kusino ran his hand through his hair, knowing that Bafoy was right yet feeling frustrated nonetheless, and walked back beside his brother. Child Emperor suddenly re-entered the laboratory, sprinting to the sides of the two scientists in desperation and a sense of urgency. I've finished the system check and integrating the software with the new machine. Good. Genos. Dr. Kusino flicked the monitor on, and on the screen was Genos diligently working with the same frantic urgency as Child Emperor, for like the young child, Genos knew that time was of the essence. Have you finished the data upload? I managed to start the upload, but it says it will take an hour to complete. Grah. Alright, I'll meet you there. Bafoy, you and Alex finish making the required modifications to the new machine, and I'll try and see if I can speed up the data upload as quickly as I possibly can. Dr. Kusino sprinted as quickly as he could across the room, leaving Alex and Bafoy alone. How much time do we think we have? Asked Bafoy. I'm not certain, but given how things are going. Bafoy picked up a remote that was next to forearm and pointed it to his multiple screen monitors. The monitors flashed to life, and Alex saw several S-class heroes lying on the ground in an unconscious state. The scene shifted, and showed brief flashes of Silver Fang fighting some mutant with purple skin and big black horns sticking out the sides of his head. I sent a few spy drones to the site to see how the events would unfold. Child Emperor suddenly felt a fearful chill emanate from Bafoy, something Child Emperor had never seen before. Let's just hope that our weapon will be enough. It will, replied Child Emperor. It has to. Garu lunged for Frieza, all the while letting out a vociferous shout. Garu began the battle with a series of short jabs, but Frieza dodged them with a relaxed stride in his movements. Garu continued his assault by punching, kicking, and elbowing Frieza as hard as he could, but for every single one of his attacks, not a single one hit home. The Space Emperor let out a laugh of condescending malice. Huh, is this serious? Said Frieza. Garu swung a right jab at Frieza's face, but the breath was completely taken out of him when he felt Frieza's fist in his stomach. Garu was sent rolling and tumbling back dozens of feet as rocks scraped his shirt and his muscles. Frieza continued his chorus of condescending laughter. Please tell me there's more than this. After all of that big talk about being the monster hero hunter, I expected something that would at least cause me to break a sweat. But with your speed, I wouldn't have to use even a tenth of my power to take care of you. The hero hunter jumped into the air and propelled himself downward to attack Frieza. Water stream rock smashing fist. Garu struck Frieza with his not-so-favorite fighting technique, but knew it was necessary for an opponent of such caliber. But even then, all of Garu's attacks were deflected by Frieza with only a single finger. Grahhhh. Garu added more speed and power to his strikes, with anger being his fuel, but Frieza was still giving him the look that told him this was just a joke. My god, how did you know I was deathly allergic to tickling? Frieza caught both of Garu's hands midair with practically non-existent effort. Garu snarled in anger, and attempted to knee Frieza hard in the chin. But it seemed like great monsters thought alike. Before Garu even had the time to move his knee more than an inch, Frieza's kneed Garu in the chin so hard. He felt like his entire jaw had been knocked loose from his head. The hero hunter staggered in a momentary daze, and he dropped his knee to the ground as he gripped his jaw to make sure he could still properly talk. All of the other heroes looked in shock. They all knew about Garu's victory over Tank Top Master, the S-class hero, and knew that he wasn't one to be easily trifled with. So how is it that Garu was being knocked around like a rag doll? God, this battle has lasted less than a minute, and already on your knees, said Frieza. Frieza mercilessly kicked Garu on the side of his head, causing Garu to fall completely on the ground. The hero hunter tried to push himself off of the ground, but Frieza's foot was planted firmly on Garu's back, preventing him from moving. I've had worse times, you know. It's not often that I dirty my hands with this sort of grunt work, but there's always a certain satisfaction I get about doing it myself. Frieza grabbed Garu by the hair and held him in an upright position. How pathetic. Frieza punched Garu in the chest, eliciting a loud yelp of pain from Garu. Frieza then formed a small ball of energy at his fingertip and fired it at point-blank range. Garu's form was barely visible as he was sent back at astounding speed. After a short moment, the energy ball exploded, creating a cloud of dust that surrounded Garu. Once the smoke cleared and Garu's form became visible, the heroes couldn't help but let out a gasp of shock. Garu's shirt was completely ripped apart. Blood was dripping down his arms, his legs, his chin, you name it. His left eye was no longer white, but instead drenched in blood red, and his long silver hair was a disheveled mess. Garu's veins were popping out in unmitigated fury. His fists were clenched tightly enough to the point of breaking the skin, and his eyes were poised with rage. Less than a minute had passed, and with only 4 attacks, Garu already felt like he was going to pass out. This kind of strength was just unfair. In order to create a fair world from the pure, monster-feed evil within himself, Garu would need this unfair power himself. "How did you do it?" whispered Garu. "What? I'm sorry, come again. I couldn't hear you over the sound of my badassery. I said how did you get so fucking strong?" snarled Garu, staring straight into Frieza's eyes when he did. The Space Emperor shrugged his shoulders callously. "My family line is the strongest of our race, and I am a prodigy even among my family. Someone as unimportant and weak like you couldn't understand." Garu's teeth grinded against each other from the unbridled rage flowing through him at this lackadaisical reply. "You bastard. You think you're all high and mighty, standing up from your fancy throne and controlling everyone like puppets," yelled Garu. "I'm trying to change the world, to eliminate the unfairness caused by heroes and their perverted sense of justice. Is this how you treat everything?" screamed Garu. "As a goddamn joke." "Pretty much, yes, but I don't consider you a joke." This last statement took Garu by surprise. "Really? Of course not. Jokes are hard and require skill." That did it for Garu. With a blood-curdling scream, Garu channeled all of his rage, passion, and remaining energy into a single punch. Alas, to all familiar with the name of the game, the punch was nonchalantly caught by Frieza, who was still smirking in delight. "Duo, I see you've gotten a second wind." Without warning, a powerful left kick hit Frieza's head, ramming him into the ground. Garu was released from Frieza's grip, and when he saw who had saved him, his lips parted into a frown. It was the old fart, along with the rest of the S-class losers who were standing right beside him. "I told you to stay out of it. This is my battle." "Your muscles are practically destroyed," said Super Alloy Darkshine, "and it's been about a minute. Besides, we don't need your permission to enter a fight or not," added Atomic Samurai, "unless you want to try and stop us." Atomic Samurai pulled out his katana and pointed it at Garu's forehead. But before he could do any more, Bang put his fingers on the blade and lowered it to the ground. "Now isn't the time for that. Bad as this might sound, we might need him. He has natural talent unlike anything I've ever seen before. This monster is too much for any single one of us to handle alone. We'll need all of the help we can get," said Bomb. Or am I wrong? While the overconfident personas they had developed would have probably jumped at the challenge to fight the god-level monster alone for the pride and fame that would come with it, they knew that what they had seen from this monster was something none of them could fight alone. No, this would have to be together, the 5 of them, and reluctantly, Garu. But when the 5 S-class heroes realized there were only 4 of them, they turned their heads and realized that King hadn't moved a muscle. "King, what are you doing there? We need your first-rate muscles," said Super Alloy Darkshine. "They cannot." The determination and resolve in his voice was palpable to the group of heroes. After a few seconds of anticipation and nominal fear, Atomic Samurai was the first to ask the obvious question. "Why?" At Atomic Samurai's question, all of them could hear the King's engine roaring to life. You see, when the aliens entered Earth's atmosphere, the reaction created a new compound called Ngawatsun. When it reacted with the bonalzane found in radiation, it causes the rare organic Jose phenomenon. This effect is naturally dangerous, but combined with the very high energy from Frieza, the effect is compounded many times over. If I unleashed my full power, the energy could destroy the entire planet. We're heroes, we're meant to save the world, not destroy it. I'm sorry, but I cannot do anything. The King engine was beating louder than ever once he finished his sentence, and that was all any of the heroes needed to back off, lest they face the wrath of the strongest man on the planet. Frieza found it hard to form a complete sentence. He listened to every single word this man, and he found it hard to distinguish whether that was complete bullshit spewing out of his mouth or if there was actually some sort of truth behind it. He thought of the possibility that this man was the warrior who defeated Vegeta and Nappa, but then he remembered Vegeta saying that the man who defeated them was bald and had a cape. After a few moments of internal thinking, he decided that once he was finished with these wannabe fighters, he would take on that man himself. Once he was done observing King, he turned his attention back to the 5 fighters standing before him. So a little 5-on-1. Alright, I think I can manage. Sound like Cooler's birthday party at a stripper club. All 5 warriors tightened their bodies and took a fighting pose. Garu absolutely detested having to work alongside the old fart, his brother, and the 2 other S-class heroes, but what choice did he have? It was either take all 6 of them at once in his weakened condition, which was practically impossible, or just give up like a coward and let the heroes do all of the work. So, the hero hunter psyched himself up and stubbornly accepted the support of the heroes. Well, Devil of Frost, it's about time I give you a front row seat to the gun show, motherfucker. And with that, Super Alloy Darkshine was the first to attack. Frieza's eyes widened a smidge when he lost sight of Super Alloy Darkshine for a brief moment. However, he quickly regained sight of him and blocked the hero's punch. Super Alloy Darkshine continued with a quick series of punches that were strong enough to fracture the ground behind Frieza from the great air pressure formed from his punches. While Super Alloy Darkshine continued to punch him, Atomic Samurai sped up to Super Alloy Darkshine's side and diligently slashed his sword. But somehow, Frieza was able to expertly dodge both string of attacks. Following up the two S-class heroes, Bang and Bomb joined in on the attacks and attacked Frieza with their own respective martial arts. Up in the sky, Vegeta and Zarbon couldn't see anything but Frieza dodging all of the attacks that were coming his way. Likewise, Goldo and Raccoon's heads were spinning trying to keep track of what was going on. The only warrior who could see the battle properly was Captain Ginyu. But the thing they all had in common was the slack-jawed expressions they had on their faces, both because of the speed of all 5 warriors and how that didn't mean a thing in face of Frieza. For the final touch, Garu sprinted up, jumped into the sky, and prepared to attack Frieza from above while he was distracted. Regrettably, as soon as Garu was mere inches from striking Frieza, the Space Emperor grabbed Garu's arm and, using Garu's momentum he built up while midair, swung him in a circle, forcing all 4 of the heroes backwards. After swinging Garu around, Frieza threw him on the ground and under the feet of Bang and Bomb. Garu quickly pushed himself up and put his hands up in defense, his fighting spirit still shining as brightly as ever. "Oh, I don't think that will do," said Frieza. Atomic Samurai, Super Alloy Darkshine, and Garu tensed. Bang and Bomb looked at each other, and with only a second of eye contact, they knew exactly what the other was thinking. Then, both Bang and Bomb stepped in front of the other 3 fighters and stood only feet away from Frieza. Both of them nudged their hands back, which was basically saying for the others to stand back. The 3 did as the 2 masters said and stepped back a few paces. A small ring of laughter came out of Frieza's mouth. "Oh, what special combo are the 2 old masters going to throw at me now?" Bang and Bomb said nothing, taking their fighting stances. The stoic silence and the serious lines engraved on their faces caused Frieza's lips to move down. What were they up to? The 2 martial artists suddenly began moving their arms and stamped their feet into the ground, causing the rocky surface to crack beneath them. Flowing water whirlwind roaring or a void ripping fist. The 2 martial artists moved toward Frieza at a velocity the Space Emperor was unprepared for, and they struck Frieza by rotating one of each of their hands into one single fist. When the special move made contact, a massive wave of air streams was released. All 3 of the fighters watching this technique were in awe. The way the attack perfectly blended the flowing air waves from the water stream rock smashing fist and the whirlwind air waves from the whirlwind iron cutting fist was beyond what even Garu himself thought possible from the water stream rock smashing fist. The Space Emperor was thrown off of his feet, sent crashing into one of the rock formations that made up the great range of canyons surrounding them. The rock formation instantly crumbled when Frieza was smashed into it, quickly burying the Space Emperor in the process. Once the 2 master martial artists had finished the special move, they slowly dropped their hands to let their guard down, and momentarily dropped their knees to the ground. Super Alloy Darkshine and Atomic Samurai walked over to them and tried to help them up. But the 2 pushed themselves back up before the heroes had a chance. "That move's really something there," said Super Alloy Darkshine. "Exactly the kind of power I expect from the master of the water stream rock smashing fist. And combined with your brother's martial art, there's no way any monster could survive," added Atomic Samurai. The martial artists gave the 2 heroes a courteous nod and a small smile in return. "Since we've passed our prime, we can only perform the technique every once in a while," said Bang. "Good thing we managed to hit him with it," stated Bomb. "Hey old guys." Everyone turned their heads in annoyance toward Garu, who was pointing his finger straight behind the heroes. "I wouldn't start celebrating just yet." Not knowing what Garu was talking about, the 4 of them looked to where Garu was pointing, and they grimaced. Frieza had just burst free from the pile of boulders he was under and for the first time, Frieza looked genuinely pissed. The heroes squinted their eyes and realized the attack had managed to fracture Frieza's body armor, revealing a white-colored upper body with a purple section in the center of his chest and on his shoulders. Frieza floated up into the air and slowly made his way back to the group of fighters, still shocked at the minimal amount of damage Frieza had sustained. With a gentle thud, Frieza placed his three-toed feet back onto solid ground. What the heroes didn't know was that Frieza was just as shocked as they were. Frieza could still feel his bones shaking inside of him. The thought that such old relics could create such a powerful attack was astounding. Frieza reckoned they couldn't have a power level that was more than 150,000, yet their mastery in martial arts was something Frieza had never encountered. Not even his father managed such precision or deadliness in his strikes. He had been arrogant to take that attack head-on. If he took another one of those attacks, he might be in considerable trouble. The newfound caution extended not only to the two old geezers, but also to the rest of the heroes. If they had abilities and precision just as unique as their aged comrades, then his life could be ended with just one slip-up. I'm impressed. I felt that. Frieza closed his eyes, and his body began to shake with rage. A little too much. In an instant, Frieza uppercutted Bang and Bomb in the chin and sent them flying up into the air. To follow up the attack, Frieza prepared two small energy balls at the tips of his fingertips and fired them directly at Bang and Bomb. But before the energy balls hit them, they were blocked by Super Alloy Darkshine, who jumped up in the air to protect Bang and Bomb. The energy balls exploded upon impact, creating a cloud of gray smoke. But Frieza was unprepared yet again. Super Alloy Darkshine burst through the cloud of smoke and pummeled Frieza with a cross-arm tackle. Super Alloy Butterfly. Frieza tensed his body and held his arms out to block the tackle, a move to which he instantly regretted. Frieza's feet were planted in the ground, being forced back by the monumental strength channeled in this single tackle. Frieza now understood that his ridiculously large muscles weren't just for show. The two combatants pushed against each other with heated intensity, neither one of them being able to gain a decisive advantage over the other. Looks like the gun show has made it to the main event. Let's see you handle these babies, shouted Super Alloy Darkshine with a confident smirk on his face. A blue aura began to flare up around Frieza. Another loud shout escaped from Frieza's lips, and the Space Emperor began to raise his Kai. The surge of energy released caused the ground to shake around him, and the smirk on Super Alloy Darkshine's face disappeared. The circus act's over, bodybuilder. As the blue energy encased around Frieza began to intensify, so did Frieza's advantage over Super Alloy Darkshine. The black bodybuilder was soon being forced back by Frieza, surprised at how a tiny little lizard like this with no muscles had the strength to push back his Super Alloy Butterfly. With a final shove, Frieza pushed Super Alloy Darkshine off of him and punched him at maximum power to effectively get through all those layers of muscle. Super Alloy Darkshine blocked the punch with his elbows, but that still didn't stop it from hurting, and he was sent backward at blinding speed. Next up in line, Atomic Samurai jumped into the air, doing multiple front flips in the air, and swung his sword at Frieza, to which the Space Emperor dodged. The force of Atomic Samurai's slash created a sharp crevice in the ground, eliciting a slight gasp of surprise from Frieza. Atomic Slash. The Master Swordsman performed his signature sword technique against Frieza. But this time, Frieza would not take his opponent lightly, and he took evasive measures, being very careful to expertly dodge all of the swordsman's slashes. From behind Atomic Samurai, Bang, Bomb, and Geru followed up the attack and struck Frieza as a single unit. Water Stream Rock Smashing Fist, Whirlwind Iron Cutting Fist. All three of them attacked at the same time while Atomic Samurai was still using his Atomic Slash. A few seconds after, Super Alloy Darkshine shook his head to shake off the damage he had taken, and jumped in yet again to join in the fight, punching relentlessly at the tiny, infuriating space lizard. But no matter what they did, Frieza was still able to outmaneuver them all. It was utterly ridiculous. From afar, the strongest man on Earth, King, was almost ready to piss his pants. He imagined that some god had been on his side today, because the fact that King was able to bullshit his way out of fighting a god-level threat was nothing short of a miracle. But beyond this, King didn't know what else he could do. He knew that bluffing would only go so far, and if 5 S-class heroes actually lost, then his fate was practically sealed. But wait, King began to hear a few moans near him. He looked down and saw that Puri Prisoner, Sweet Mask, and Tatsumaki's eyes were all starting to flutter open. King's heart did about 50 somersaults, and for a brief moment, the emotionless, stoic machine was replaced with that of the nerdish, frightened gamer that he truly was, and he frantically shook all of them awake. Guys, come on, get up. All three of them were slow to get up, and had to take some time to remember where they were and what had happened. Are you guys alright? King, said Sweet Mask. What's going on? Oh, that little fucking toad. As soon as Tatsumaki remembered her battle, her entire body began to tremble with rage. I swear to God, I'm going to. Tornado. King coldly called her name, bringing her attention to him. There are bigger battles going on right now than the little toad, said King. He pointed towards Frieza, and the three heroes realized that Bang, Bomb, Atomic Samurai, and Geru were all in battle with Frieza, and for whatever reason, none of them were able to land a firm hit on Frieza. I don't know how much longer they can keep this up. They need your help. So then why aren't you in battle? Asked Tornado. If anything, the strongest man on Earth should be fighting the god-level threat more than any other S-class hero, said Sweet Mask with a skeptical tone. The King engine started to hum to life, and his eyes became like piercing daggers, setting them on all three of the heroes. I've explained this to the others, but right now, when the aliens entered Earth's atmosphere, the reaction created a new compound called Ngawatsun. When it reacted with the bonalzane found in radiation, it causes the rare organic Jose phenomenon. This effect is naturally dangerous, but combined with the very high energy from Frieza, the effect is compounded many times over. If I unleashed my full power, the energy could destroy the entire planet. I'm sorry, but I cannot do anything. Tornado still gave the skeptical gaze to King for a few seconds, then let out an aggravated groan, throwing her hands up into the air in annoyance. Fine, whatever. Come on guys, let's go help the manly men. I'll try to bring Metal Bat and Flashy Flash back to it. It's the least that I can do, said King. The three heroes gave small nods to King, and ran off to aid the heroes in the ongoing battle. King sprinted to Metal Bat and Flashy Flash's sides and vigorously shook their bodies, trying to get them to come to it. Come on, guys. Don't leave me hanging here. We need you. King continued to shake them as hard as he could, and after about 10 seconds of shaking, there was finally a sign of consciousness. A breath of relief escaped King's lips. Guys, can you hear me? Like with the other three heroes, both Metal Bat and Flashy Flash responded to King with a series of groans, clutching their heads as memories of the previous battles came back to them. What's going on? King pulled on both of their heads to show them the ongoing battle between the S-class heroes and Lord Frieza. Right now, they're in a losing battle. Long story short, I can't battle. There's no time to ask why that's the case, it just is. Flashy Flash, do you have an extra weapon on you? Flashy Flash dug around his belt and drew out 2 dual-blade knives. I can manage with this. Finally, Metal Bat propped himself off of the ground with his bat and stared at Frieza with lust for battle burning in his soul. I get to show that upstart lizard what for. Let's go, Flash. The blonde ninja nodded, and the two of them sprinted off to join in the battle. Wait a minute, what the hell? Frieza muttered to himself when he saw that the number of heroes he was fighting had risen from 5 to 9. Yes indeed, it appeared that the earlier combatants had had enough rest and decided to join in on the fun. With this many opponents, Frieza couldn't afford to go offensive, or else he would take 10 hits for every 1 hit he got on them. He had no choice but to stay on the defensive. Hold on. Frieza began to feel his body grow heavier, his movements more sluggish, and his speed decrease. Frieza had no idea what was the cause of this, until he looked up and saw the tiny little Esper, with her body glowing a bright green and her hands held outward towards him. That infuriating wench. She must have been using her psychic abilities to slow his body down so it would be harder to fight all of them at once. Up in the sky, Tatsumaki's head was racing with thoughts. How pathetic. You guys can't do anything without me. If I use my powers like this, then the damage will worsen. But if I sleep for the next few days, I think I'll be alright. But Tatsumaki was taken aback by Frieza's heightened resistance against her psychic powers. Any normal monster would have been defeated in 5 seconds with the kind of power she was exerting now, but somehow, Frieza was able to withstand it. Was this the strength of a god-level threat? Dragon Thrashing. Metal Bat unleashed his signature technique, which involved a barrage of smacks from his bat at the same spot from multiple angles. Frieza groaned in anger, having difficulty dodging all of the attacks with the tiny bitch restraining him. On his right, Flashy Flash was attacking him with 2 dual blades, and on his left, Puri Prisoner was swinging his iron ball like he was swinging his dick. The heroes could see the aggravation in Frieza's face, the more frantic and disorganized behavior in his dodging. They were doing something right, that was for sure. Too many. Every second, the amount of hits Frieza took began to increase. Even though his speed and strength were superior to all of them, fighting 10 people, with one of them making it almost impossible to use more than half of his power, was too much, even for him. Atomic Slash. The infuriating swordsman once again used his Atomic Slash, and this time, Frieza wasn't able to get out of it unharmed. All over his body, scratches were left by all of the narrow dodges Frieza managed while still working to keep the others from hitting him. Do it now, Silver Fang. Huh? Atomic Samurai jumped up out of Frieza's path, along with the rest of the heroes, making Frieza realize that their attacks were just a decoy for the real attack, the two old geezers. Both of them were at top speed, side by side, rushing for their ultimate attack. Secret combination, Cross-Fang Dragon Slayer Fist. Frieza felt the amazing martial arts prowess yet again. But this time, it was amplified, even more powerful than the whirlwind water roaring or a sky-ripping sky. Frieza blocked some of the attacks, but the Asper's psychic binding prevented him from properly defending himself against this kind of united attack, and he was forced to take some of the blows and feel the way the force reverberated throughout his bones, his spine, his muscles. Hell, even his brain was being shaken like a maraca. The hero hunter repeated his previous move of jumping up into the air to strike Frieza with the finishing blow. They could actually do this. The bastard heroes actually did their jobs for once and put Frieza on the ropes. They could win. You're finished, Frieza. NOOO. The Space Emperor let out an ear-splintering scream and released a huge surge of energy, pushing Bang and Bomb back and forcing the other heroes to take evasive maneuvers. The surge of energy created a bright flash, encompassing the entire area in a white dome. However, the attack was only temporary, and in less than a few seconds, the bright dome was gone. In the center of the dome, Frieza chuckled in delight. That should do it. Frieza looked across the rocky terrain, realizing he was in fact wrong. All of the heroes were standing several hundred feet away, completely uninjured. Even the two old geezers had managed to escape the attack unharmed. Frieza didn't understand how, but then he realized that the Asper must have shielded them with a protective barrier. He looked to the sky, and sure enough, Tatsumaki had Bang and Bomb floating up beside her, all three of them encased in the same green aura. "Why you? It's all over," exclaimed Sweet Mask. The group of fighters all jumped simultaneously, until all 10 of them were surrounding Frieza in a circle, preventing him from escaping. "This is the end of the line for you," said Flashy Flash. "You're outnumbered. This is the true power of our planet. You don't stand a chance," shouted Metal Bat. "This is your limit." At those words, an obvious light bulb lit up in Frieza's head, so obvious that he can't believe it took him this long for him to come to him. The frustrated lines etched in his face vanished, and his lips pursed into a smile. "Oh, you don't know how wrong you are." Frieza's calm and condescending demeanor most of the heroes were all too familiar with returned, causing some of them to back off in slight hesitation. Frieza let out a soft chuckle and put his hands to his sides, extending his legs as well. "You have no idea what you've gotten yourselves into. If you had been here when I handed to the leader of the Monster Association, you defeated the boss of the Monster Association," said Puri Prisoner, interrupting Frieza. "Indeed, you should have been there, because if you had, you would have learned that this isn't even close to the pinnacle of my strength. For you see, I am one of the few beings in the universe with the ability to transform at will." A few gasps escaped the lips of the heroes. "Transform? What are you talking about?" shouted Tatsumaki, who was still floating in the air a few feet above the rest of the heroes. "The form you see before you is not the form I was born with. This state is an altered shape of being designed to keep my power from running amok." "Don't fall for it," shouted Metal Bat. "You can't seriously buy this, right? This is obviously just a bluff meant to scare us. Is that a fact?" Frieza craned his head to Metal Bat and flashed him a devious smile. "Very well. I'm only too happy to put your doubts to rest. Now pay close attention. This isn't something you see every day." Despite some of the arrogant claims of falsehood against Frieza's boastful claim, many of the heroes were in fact desperately hoping it was a lie for the unadulterated fear bubbling up inside them from the possibility of witnessing something stronger than the monstrous beast they were fighting right now. The Space Emperor bent his knees and prepared to start the show. "Let's begin the terror." Once again, Frieza began to shout. As he did, a fluid, light red aura wrapped itself around Frieza. Every single one of the heroes took a step back as they watched the first stage of some unspeakable horror about to unfold. The energy released from his body wasn't just to start a light show. In fact, his entire body began to bulge. The muscles in his arms and legs buffed up, causing Frieza's scream to louden. It sounded like the transformation was actually causing Frieza pain, the surge of power increasing his size beyond what should have been possible. Frieza's height was no longer that of a small 6th grader, but was changing into a stature worthy of an emperor of his status. Frieza's horns elongated, changing shape and pointing upward instead of to the side. His neck stretched out several inches. For the finishing touch, every line and feature carved in his body began to glow a bright red. The screams of pain emanated from Frieza began to die down, until they were nothing more than tired grunts. Frieza took one final breath, then calmly exhaled. There, all done. Frieza's voice had deepened, cutting into everyone who heard him speak, and judging by the looks on your faces, so are you. Frieza turned his head 360 degrees to see the look on their faces, and it was even better than he had expected. Yes indeed, what Frieza had become was beyond anything they had ever thought possible from such a small monster. Out of all of the heroes, Super Alloy Darkshine was in fact the first one to snap out of the self-induced shocked state. Now this is what I was expecting from the Devil of Frost, exclaimed Darkshine. Frieza turned himself to face Super Alloy Darkshine, giving him a sly smirk as they stared each other in the eye. If you ask me, this is the form you should stay in, because with this, I can see real muscles. But Super Alloy Darkshine raised his fist, willfully determined to reign victorious, buffed his entire body up, and struck the Space Emperor with everything he had. Super Alloy Bazooka. It won't work this time. Darkshine's face completely faltered, the supremely confident hero facade he built up vanishing into the wind. With almost minimal effort, Frieza caught Darkshine's fist. Now it's my turn. Frieza nailed Darkshine in the stomach with his left knee, causing Darkshine to grunt in agony. Following up was a right fist slamming across Darkshine's face, and for the final touch, Frieza cupped his hands together and blasted Darkshine away with an orange energy ball. Darkshine was blown away, and the energy ball exploded like others before. Bastard. Next up to bat. Metal Bat bounded toward Frieza, prepping his ultimate attack. Savage Tornado. Metal Bat wildly swung his bat with enough speed to create a small tornado. What the hero seeing was unreal. Frieza merely stood there, taking all of Metal Bat's hits, with not so much as a scratch forming on his body. After being hit by the bat 100 times, Frieza decided he let Metal Bat have his fun and caught his bat with the tips of his fingers. Metal Bat's eyes became just like Super Alloy Darkshine, lit with fear. You're too old to play with toys. Frieza gripped the bat, causing it to crumple up. Metal Bat's heart jumped up to his mouth. The Space Emperor took the bat out of the teenager's hands, whose loose grip made it easy to take. After looking at the bat for a few seconds, Frieza shrugged his shoulders and tossed the bat up into the air up to God knows where. But my bat's indestructible. Ah, my boy, everything is destructible, jeered Frieza. Here, let me quell your suffering. Frieza slammed his elbow down on Metal Bat's back, then kicked Metal Bat's face with such strength that even his fighting spirit couldn't compensate for, sending him to the same fate as Darkshine and knocking him unconscious yet again. Frieza let out a hearty laugh. Now let's see who's next. After searching the group of terror-stricken heroes, he finally found his next volunteer. You're up next, little one. In the blink of an eye, Frieza disappeared, quickly reappearing behind Tornado of Terror. The Space Emperor lightly tapped her shoulder with his finger, causing her to jump up in fear. The female hero's fear quickly disappeared, and Tatsumaki tried to restrain his body just as she had done before, but it wasn't working. The power he had now made his other form look like a sleeping kitten. She couldn't do anything to him. Not in my house. Tatsumaki put up a psychic barrier to protect herself, but Frieza ripped through it like paper, proceeding to punch her square in the nose. The female Esper clutched her nose, screaming in pain. Frieza cackled in delight, and finished off the annoying Esper with a single kick. The remaining fighters could not believe their eyes. Frieza was decimating the world's most powerful heroes with no more than 2 attacks. Like this was nothing more than child's play. The Space Emperor assuredly crossed his arms, floating back down to the center of the remaining group of fighters. So who's next? The next moments were a blur to all of the fighters. All of them decided to go for broke and attack him all at once. But it was pointless. Frieza was so fast, none of the heroes ever realized he had even moved. With nothing more than single punches, each fighter was rewarded broken bones, bloody faces, torn muscles, injuries that were impossible to simply tough out. Oh, I'm feeling real good about my life right now. All remaining heroes landed on the ground with a silent thud. It was over. Bang, bomb, Garu, Flashy Flash, Puri Puri Prisoner, Atomic Samurai, Super Alloy Darkshine, Sweet Mask, Tatsumaki, and Metal Bat had all been taken out. The only soul still standing was King, the world's strongest man. The only one still conscious was Garu. With the last of his strength, the hero hunter silently uttered these words, "Go kick his ass, King." And the rogue warrior stands alone, shouted Frieza. I must say, I am rather curious of what the proclaimed strongest man on this planter has to offer. Frieza unhurriedly made his way toward the final opponent, strutting around like he hadn't a care in the world, which thankfully, he didn't. King didn't move a muscle, he didn't speak, he didn't do anything except stare right back at Frieza with the cold, signature gaze he gave any monster unfortunate to come across his path. 20 steps had been taken, and Frieza now stood before King, hovering over him, glaring at him with natural curiosity. The wind had stopped. Tension and intensity entered the atmosphere, and between Frieza and King, the boiling fire of battle grew hotter and hotter with each passing second. The spectators watched in earnest to witness Frieza take on his final opponent, and probably the toughest challenger any of them had ever seen. After about a minute of this silent apprehension, it was King who finally broke the silence and spoke. "Do you know who I am, Frieza? You're the strongest man, are you not?" Inclined Frieza. "My name is King, and yes, I am the strongest man on this planet." As soon as he finished his sentence, a rapid beating noise filled the air. Frieza's eyebrows furrowed, wondering where this random noise had come from, until he realized the beating was coming from King. "What's the matter? Are you scared?" King scoffed. "Scared? Of course not. The public knows this is the King engine, which is the sound my heart makes when I prepare for battle. For all opponents I face, it's the last sound they ever hear." Oh, ominous. The Space Emperor took a fighting pose, while King remained motionless. "Well then, let's put it to the test." "Hold on." King put his hand up into the air, catching Frieza off guard. "Before we fight, I'd like to know a little more about you." "You do." Frieza went out of his fighting pose and crossed his arms. "And why might that be? Are you stalling for reinforcements to arrive? Have you realized that I am an opponent that cannot be beaten? Because if you have, then I officially consider you the smartest being on this mud ball." "Not at all. No, I am just genuinely curious. I was warned about your arrival, though a prophecy, but beyond that, I know practically nothing behind you. You are by far the strongest warrior this planet has ever come across and the strongest opponent I will ever face. Just killing you wouldn't be right. I need to know the history behind the Emperor of the Universe in order to be truly satisfied with my victory." Frieza's face hadn't changed a millimeter. His arms were still crossed in front of him, and the skeptical look in his eyes never left. Inside King's mind, he was already thinking what his epitaph would be on his tombstone. It was over. He'd shit his way through a lot of problems, but this was finally the time he kicked the bucket. Saitama wasn't coming. All the heroes were down, and the lie he had lived for these past years was about to be revealed to the world in all its undignifying glory. Today was King's demise, or so he thought. Somehow, that unbelievable luck King had acquired these past few years had saved his ass yet again. Or maybe the god watching over him had decided to give King a second chance, because Frieza actually bought it. Why, I've never been asked such a question in all my years. To be honest, I'm actually quite flattered. Very well. Frieza unfolded his arms, and the skeptical look had faded. "I'll humor you and tell you the story of my grandiose title. I am born to a race of extremely powerful warriors. My father, King Cold, raised me alongside my brother, Cooler. Did you have a mother?" King had to stall as much as he could without making it so obvious, and that meant dragging this conversation out by asking as many questions or commenting as much as he could. "Why, yes, I do. My parents trained me during my childhood, and when I was old enough, my father allowed me and my brother to officially rule as part of the Galactic Frieza Army. Throughout my years, I conquered many planets and enslaved many races. All in all, I own 448 planets." "Quite impressive," said King. "Why, thank you." Frieza gave King a small smile. "While I enslaved many races, the race that was the most powerful by far was the Saiyan race. You might not know, but one of them is up there." Frieza pointed behind him to where his subordinates were watching. "The one in the black hair is Vegeta, Prince of Saiyans and the last remaining Saiyan in existence." "What happened to the rest of them?" "Well, since you're going to die anyway, I might as well tell you. You see, there was a legend of a Super Saiyan, a warrior of unrivaled power and one of the only beings who could ever pose a threat to me. At first, I brushed this off as nothing more than a farcical myth. However, after many Saiyans started emerging with rapidly evolving potential, I started to get a little edgy. With so many Saiyans growing at such amazing speeds, I couldn't just sit back and do nothing. So I did the simplest thing possible. I torched the whole barrel of monkeys." In fact, Frieza suddenly began counting to himself, greatly perplexing King. "I think this is the 25-year anniversary." "Huh? Imagine that." Frieza let out a few chuckles of amazement. "It must be destiny, I suppose." The fateful day the Saiyans were extinguished was truly a spectacle to behold. Up in the spectators' stand, Vegeta tried to listen in on the conversation they were having, but was unable to get anything more than a few words, one of them being Saiyans. "Zarbon, can you hear what Frieza's talking about?" said Vegeta. "It's Lord Frieza, and no, I cannot," replied Zarbon. Whatever, Vegeta grumbled to himself and clenched his fists in anger. The look on King Vegeta's face is something I will never forget. King Vegeta, the ruler of all Saiyans, bid a hasty retreat at the power my first form yields, and in a foolish last stand, was ended with a single punch like the woeful dotard he was. Phew. The person who spoke wasn't King Frieza, and King turned around to see someone entirely unexpected. Up in the sky, Vegeta's body tensed, refusing to believe what he was seeing. Of all the times in all the places, he had to come now, just when Frieza was about to do combat with the strongest man in the planet, and just when the horrifying truth of the Saiyans' extinction was being revealed. The brick-headed spastic actually had the gall to show his face again. Nappa, the Saiyan general, had returned, and he had heard every word of what Frieza just said. To describe in words what Nappa was feeling was utterly impossible. No word in any language came even close to what Nappa was feeling at that moment. For 25 years, he had to live with the guilt, pain, sadness, and grief of his race's extinction, and to know he hadn't been there with King Vegeta was something he never forgave himself for. For 25 years, he served under the loathsome, conniving, sadistic, lying, dishonorable snake who destroyed his home world and killed his king. Not a single day went by without thinking what he would say to King Vegeta if he ever got to see him again. To tell him he was sorry he couldn't be the mentor to his son the king had hoped him to be. To tell him that despite his best efforts, his pride and hubris had blinded him to the point of abandoning his Saiyan brethren. And to tell him he was the only true friend he ever had. The two shared the brotherly bond all Saiyans should have shown for their brethren. And standing a few feet away from him, his killer stood grinning and gloating with hubris, without a care in the world. You exterminated my race. Frieza was unsure of how to respond to this, and mumbled a bunch of incoherent nonsense. Something became different in Nappa. The ground began to tremble around his feet. Out of nowhere, lightning began to strike down from the sky. Pebbles began to rise from the ground, floating in the air. The ground below Nappa then shattered underneath him. His eyes began to flicker, changing in color. A gold aura began to flicker in and out of existence around Nappa. What was happening to him? I will make you suffer. All the rage, turmoil, resentment, and grief within him was boiling inside him, setting his very soul on fire. It was like a surge of energy, a rush of adrenaline that he'd never experienced before. He felt like his entire body was going to explode, taking the entire planet along with him. With the last restraints of anger finally being unleashed, Nappa let out a cry of rage, his aura bursting out in an uncontrollable torrent of flame. What? Shouted Frieza. When the scream of Nappa echoed to a stop, the earthquakes and lightning immediately ceased. It was as if time had ceased completely into a frozen standstill. A golden light radiated from Nappa. An intense pressure surrounded Frieza and King, threatening to knock King unconscious from the unbelievable gravity surrounding him. Likewise, the spectators watching above could feel this unprecedented wave of energy. This pressure almost took away the physical changes that had occurred. His muscles had bulged in size, causing him to gain about an extra foot in height. His eyes and facial hair were the same color as the golden aura radiating around him. Ginyu, Rikum, Goldo, and Zarbon didn't understand what this meant. None of them had ever heard of a Saiyan transformation beyond the Great Ape. But this wasn't any Great Ape. A series of baffled stutters caught their attention. Turning their heads, they saw Prince Vegeta, who looked like someone had stabbed him in the chest. What the hell did he know that they didn't? No, this can't be. Don't tell me. What the hell have you become? Screamed Frieza. The Saiyan general gave no response at first. A few seconds passed, and the general looked up at Frieza. When Nappa focused his gaze on Frieza, the tyrant was rendered speechless. I am a Super Saiyan. Now prepare to burn in hell. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 7. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.